The twin suns rise over Tatooine, but their light does not bring hope, it burns. The desert stretches endlessly, swallowing every dream in dunes of silence. You are not free here. You are owned, your name little more than a number in a ledger. Chains bind you, not just in metal, but in fear, in hunger, in control. On this world, lives are bought and sold like water, and every breath you take belongs to someone else. This is why it truly sucked to be a slave on Tatooine. So sit back, grab a snack, and let your imagination drift across the stars. And remember, if you enjoy this journey, subscribe, because the story of the galaxy is far from over. You open your eyes, and the suns are already there, blinding, merciless, unyielding. Their twin fires burn across the horizon like twin predators circling above, waiting for the moment you stumble. The light doesn't warm you. It scorches. It claws at your skin, pries into your eyes, dries your lips until every breath feels stolen from a furnace. Sand clings to your lashes, your tongue, your very lungs. And still, you rise, because you must. The chain at your wrist rattles when you move, not heavy by weight but heavier by meaning. It isn't just iron, it is identity. It is your place in this world. You are not free, not here, not ever. You are property, a number, a life whose worth is measured not in dreams, but in how many hours you can stand in the heat before your body collapses. The desert greets you the same way every morning, with silence that isn't silence at all. The hiss of wind cutting through the canyons, the groan of durasteel gates opening in the distance, the muffled cries of slaves roused too slowly by the shock of a prod. It all weaves together into a soundscape of survival, one you've come to know too well. Somewhere beyond Mos Espa, you can almost hear the low hum of podracer engines being tested, their screams carrying like ghosts over the sand. You smell the acrid tang of oil and sweat even from here. For a moment, you wonder if those engines feel freer than you do, even though they're bolted together with wires and flame. The ground beneath you burns through the thin soles of your feet. Each step across the sand feels like stepping onto coals, but stopping is worse. You've seen what happens when someone falls behind. The guards don't bother to strike with words, they strike with pain. The memory flashes sharp across your skin. The sting of a shock whip, its blue crackle filling the air, the smell of singed flesh lingering for hours after. You learned, quickly, pain is a teacher, and on Tatooine, lessons are cruel. Everywhere you look, the world reminds you of your place. Stone walls blotched with sand, painted with crude symbols of the Hutt's dominion. Faded banners flutter weakly in the wind, their colors long drained by the suns. In the markets, cages hang in rows like trophies, slaves displayed like animals for trade. You don't have to see your reflection to know the truth. You are one of them. Another shadow among shadows. Another nameless face in a desert that swallows everything. You taste dust on your tongue and you wonder when you last drank clean water. Days blur together here. Was it yesterday? Last week? Does it matter? Hunger gnaws, thirst burns, but these are not your decisions to make. They are luxuries granted or withheld on a whim. Your stomach growls, but you know better than to beg. The masters feed you just enough to keep you working, never enough to let you feel whole. The cruelty is deliberate. Full bellies breed rebellion. Empty ones breed obedience. You try not to remember the time before this life. It hurts too much. Flashes come unbidden. A face, a voice, a laugh. Someone who might have called you theirs. A mother? A father? Or just a dream stitched together by a child who once thought they were more than a slave. The memories are slippery now, dissolving like water spilled on sand. You cling to them, but the desert takes everything. Around you, other slaves stir. Their eyes look just like yours, sunken, hollow, stripped of light. Some are older, their backs bent like broken reeds. Some are children, no older than you, their hands already blistered from endless labor. The galaxy might call them young, But Tatooine has stolen their childhood. You catch one boy staring at the horizon, his lips moving soundlessly as if whispering to the stars, still faint in the dawn sky. Hope, that dangerous word. It dies quickly here, but sometimes it flickers like a spark refusing to be buried. The sound of boots crunching through sand pulls you back. A guard passes, his shadow stretching long in the rising sun. His blaster rests lazily at his hip, but you know he doesn't need it. The small device in his palm glows faintly, a remote for the restraining bolts that hum silently against your skin. You've never forgotten the first time you felt it, the searing jolt that ripped through your body, muscles seizing, lungs refusing to obey. That moment when the world turned white-hot and you swore you would die. But you didn't. You lived. And in living, you learned obedience. That's how the Hutts prefer it. Chains you can't see, but chains that choke you all the same. You keep your head down because looking up is dangerous. Looking up means meeting eyes. Meeting eyes means recognition. Recognition means punishment. So you lower your gaze, staring at the cracked earth beneath your feet, wishing it would swallow you whole. But the desert is merciless. It doesn't bury you. It keeps you alive. And sometimes, you wonder if that is the cruelest part. The suns climb higher, and the heat thickens like a blanket of fire. Sweat beads along your brow, sliding down your temples, stinging your eyes. You wipe it away with the back of your hand, only to smear more sand across your skin. Every part of you feels gritty, raw, unclean. No matter how many times you try to brush the sand off, it always returns. It invades your clothes, your hair, your bed. You think sometimes that the sand is part of you now, as if even the desert claims ownership of your body. A voice shouts in Hutts, guttural and cruel, orders. You don't need a translation, you've heard them all before. Move, work, faster, always faster. You join the line of slaves shuffling toward the labor yard, chains rattling. Softly like a grim melody. The sound is almost soothing in its familiarity. A rhythm you've heard your entire life, but beneath it is something else. A truth you don't dare say aloud. The sound of your own freedom slipping further away with every step. The work begins, and time loses meaning. Hours stretch, broken only by the whip cracks of overseers and the groans of exhausted bodies collapsing in the dust. You carry, you lift, you scrape. Every muscle burns, every breath feels stolen. And through it all, the suns glare down, unblinking, uncaring. By midday, you feel as if you've been burning for centuries. You glance once more at the horizon. For just a heartbeat, you let yourself imagine what lies beyond it. Cities, forests, oceans, stars. A galaxy that doesn't even know you exist. A galaxy that will never know your name. The thought is both a comfort and a torment. Because maybe, just maybe, there is more than this. Maybe freedom isn't just a dream. But then the guard's remote hums, and agony floods your veins. You fall to your knees gasping, the taste of blood sharp on your tongue. The laughter of other guards cuts through the pain, cruel and careless. Your hope dies as quickly as it came. You push yourself up, weak but alive. Because that is what survival means on Tatooine. Endure, obey, breathe, nothing more. And as the suns blaze overhead, you realize this is only the beginning. The chains will tighten, the labor will grow harsher, and the desert will take from you what little remains. Because here, on this world of sand and silence, freedom is a lie, and tomorrow it will suck even worse to be a slave on Tatooine. You breathe in, and even that feels stolen. The air is dry, heavy, coated with dust so fine it scrapes down your throat like tiny shards of glass. Every inhale is a reminder that nothing on this planet belongs to you, not your body, not your time, not even the breath filling your lungs. It is borrowed, and it can be taken away with the flick of a switch, the pull of a trigger, the whim of a master who does not see you as alive, but as theirs. You hold that truth in your chest like a stone because on Tatooine, every breath has a price. The suns climb higher, their light turning from gold to white, their fire pressing into your skin until you feel like you're being baked from the inside out. Your lips crack, your tongue swells, and thirst gnaws at you with a cruelty sharper than any blade. Water is rationed here, not shared, not given, controlled. When the masters pour a measure into a dented cup, you drink it not as relief, but as a transaction. The water is not for you. It is for your body to keep working, for your hands to keep lifting, for your heart to keep beating under their command. You are nothing more than an investment, and survival is only the return they expect from you. You taste the bitterness of yesterday's rations still lingering on your tongue. The water was warm, metallic, tainted with sand, but you drank anyway, because the desert doesn't forgive thirst, and your master doesn't forgive weakness. The memory of that lukewarm sip is all that keeps you standing now as your throat tightens and your chest aches. You close your eyes, trying to imagine rivers, lakes, oceans, but your mind refuses. The desert doesn't allow dreams of water. It strangles them before they form. Around you, other slaves gasp and cough in the heat. Their skin glistens with sweat, but you know it won't last. Soon the sun will take it, leaching the last drops from their bodies until hair as dry as the dunes themselves. A woman collapses beside you, her knees buckling, her arms limp. For a heartbeat, you want to help her. You want to reach out, to pull her back to her feet, to share what little strength you have left. But the guards see. They always see. And kindness here is punished just as harshly as rebellion. You keep moving, though every step feels like betrayal. The whip cracks behind you, and the woman doesn't rise again. That sound, the whip's electric scream, echoes in your bones. It always does. You've heard it so many times you can almost predict its rhythm, the way it snaps air before biting flesh. You've felt it too. The sting, the burn, the way it lingers long after the pain should have faded. Sometimes you think the whip leaves something deeper than scars, something in your spirit that never quite heals. That's the cost of breathing here. You endure agony, or you don't endure at all. The Hutts know this. They don't need to speak it aloud because you feel it in every moment. The guards don't need to shout because the air itself carries their message. You are alive because they allow it. You are alive because it profits them. And if one day it doesn't, then the desert will reclaim you and no one will remember your name. Your stomach growls, a hollow ache twisting deep inside you. Hunger is another price, another debt you cannot escape. Food here is not a meal. It is a ration of survival, a scrap of bread, hard as stone, that tastes more of dust than grain, a strip of meat so thin and stringy you can't tell if it came from an animal or a vermin scavenged in the alleys of Mos Espa. You chew it anyway, each bite grinding grit against your teeth, because hunger doesn't ask what it is. Hunger only asks if it exists. You remember a time, was it real or just a dream, when meals were warm, when food carried flavor, when water was cool and sound, clear. You hold on to that memory even as it fades, because it feels like proof that you were once more than this, that you once lived, that you once mattered. But then the chains rattle against your wrist, and the memory collapses into dust. Perhaps you never knew freedom at all. Perhaps you were always meant to be here in this desert, paying the price of every breath with your body. The market in Mos Espa is alive with sound, though not with joy. Merchants bark prices for food, spices, droids. Slaves shuffle in lines, their collars gleaming faintly in the suns. You hear laughter from the wealthy, the kind that slices sharper than cruelty because it carries no awareness of cruelty at all. To them, suffering is not a tragedy, it is entertainment. They laugh while you starve, they drink while you thirst, they breathe while you suffocate. And then there are the Hutts. Jabba's name alone is a chain around your neck. His palace looms like a monument to greed, its towers stretching above the sand like a challenge to the desert itself. Inside, fountains bubble and banquet tables groan under the weight of food you will never taste. You hear rumors of slaves fed well within those walls, treated with comfort, but you know better. Even when the collar is padded in silk, it still strangles the same. The Hutts don't grant luxury, they grant illusion. And illusion is the cruelest price of all. A child stumbles beside you, his face streaked with sweat and sand. His breaths come shallow, ragged, like the desert is pulling them straight out of his chest. You see yourself in him. You see the same fear, the same helplessness. And in that moment, you realize the desert has no favorites. It will bury the young and the old alike, swallowing their voices into silence. You want to tell him to endure, to hold on, that it gets easier. But it doesn't. It never gets easier. It only gets worse. That is, the truth you swallow along with the dust in your throat. The heat presses harder, the suns climbing toward their zenith. Every inch of your body screams for rest. Your muscles tremble, your vision blurs, your chest heaves like a bellows ready to collapse. You count your breaths, each one a small rebellion against the desert, against the masters, against fate itself. 1, 2, 3. Each inhale a stolen treasure, each exhale a whispered prayer. Maybe no one hears it, maybe no one cares, but you breathe anyway, because it is the only thing you can still call your own. And then, suddenly, you hear it. The hum, low at first, then building. Pod racers, their engines scream across the horizon, tearing through the silence like thunder. The sound is alive, feral, untamed. You stop for just a second, your head tilting toward the roar. It feels like freedom, dangerous, wild, out of reach, but freedom nonetheless. You imagine yourself at the helm of one of those machines, soaring above the sands, outrunning your chains, outrunning the suns. The thought is intoxicating, and then the guard's hand clamps your shoulder, dragging you back to the dust. The dream dies before it takes flight. You bow your head, forcing yourself to move again. You remind yourself what survival means. It means obeying. It means enduring. It means accepting that every breath you take is paid for in pain, in hunger, in silence. That is the cost of living on Tatooine. That is the price of breath. But deep inside, beneath the fear, beneath the exhaustion, something lingers. A whisper, a thought you dare not speak aloud. What if there is more than this? What if breath could be free? The idea terrifies you more than the guards, more than the desert, because it feels dangerous, it feels impossible, and yet it refuses to die. You close your eyes as the suns blaze overhead, and you clutch that thought like a ret flame. Tomorrow, you tell yourself, tomorrow maybe, but tomorrow never comes. Not here, not in the desert, and not when every breath you take belongs to someone else. You hear his name before you see his palace. Jabba, spoken in low tones, spat like venom, whispered like a curse. On Tatooine, his shadow stretches farther than the sun's. It doesn't matter where you stand, in the alleys of Mos Espa, in the choking dust of the slave yards, or beneath the jagged cliffs of the Jundland wastes, you still feel it, heavy, smothering, inevitable. The Hutt's shadow is not cast by his bulk alone, but by the weight of fear he commands, the way his name alone can silence a crowd. You shuffle forward in line, sand grinding between your toes, the chain at your ankle biting with every step. Around you, the city stirs. Mos Espa is alive, but not free. The smell of fried meats and roasted nuna wafts from the stalls, mingling with the sharp tang of engine oil and the bitter dust that clings to your tongue. Merchants bark prices over the din, their voices loud, desperate, hungry for credits. But louder still is the unspoken truth, all of it, every coin traded, every slave bought, every deal struck, it all feeds Jabba. The Hutt doesn't need to be present. His will lives in every transaction. His greed is stitched into the fabric of the city. You remember the first time you saw him, not as a master, not as a figure on a dais, but as a legend made flesh. His palace loomed like a scar on the desert, carved from stone and shadow, its gates yawning like the jaws of a beast ready to swallow you whole. The guards outside, Gamorreans, Nikto, Weequay, all watched with dull, pitiless eyes. Their armor stank of sweat and blood, and their weapons gleamed under the twin suns. You felt small then, smaller than you already were, like prey wandering into a predator's den. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and spice, the kind that clung to your lungs and made every breath feel poisoned. Music echoed faintly, a jumbled mix of strings and percussion, the soundtrack of indulgence, gents and cruelty. And there he was, Jabba. His body sprawled across the dais like a mountain of flesh, his eyes half-lidded but sharp, gleaming with cunning. His laugh boomed, deep and wet, a sound that filled the chamber and crushed the will of those who heard it. You didn't need to understand his words to know what they meant. Power, ownership, hunger. Slaves knelt before him, chained at the throat, their collars glinting in the torchlight. Some danced, their movements stiff from exhaustion, yet desperate to please. Others served drinks, carried trays, cleaned spills before they touched the floor. None looked up. None dared. The ones who did were reminders, dragged screaming to the pits below, their cries echoing through stone halls as a warning. You learned quickly. In Jabba's presence, you kept your eyes down, your voice silent, your breath shallow. The Hutts don't rule with laws, they rule with appetites. Their will is hunger given form, hunger for credits, for spice, for flesh. You've seen what happens when that hunger turns toward you. A glance, a word, a gesture, and suddenly your fate is decided. Maybe you're sent to clean the engines in the Podracing Pits. Maybe you're given to a bounty hunter as a form of payment. Maybe you're fed to a rancor in the bowels of the palace, your screams drowned out by the beast's guttural roar. The Hutts don't kill because they must, they kill because they can, and that is their power. You walk the streets of Mos Espa and you feel it, always. The weight of his eyes, though he isn't there. The city itself seems bent beneath his shadow. The cantinas thrive on spice that flows from his hands. The pod racing arenas roar with engines he owns. Even the guards in the alleys wear their brutality like a gift from him. When you breathe, you wonder if even the air owes itself to Jabba's will. Sometimes you hear rumors, whispers of other Hutts across the galaxy, ruling on Nal Hutta, trading in slaves, fighting for control of syndicates. But here, on Tatooine, only Jabba matters. His voice decides who eats, who starves, who lives, who dies. The Republic doesn't come here. The Jedi don't come here. There are no courts, no senators, no laws. There is only Jabba. And you, shackled beneath him, are part of his empire whether you wish it or not. You see his cruelty reflected in the eyes of his underlings, the Toydarian traders who sneer as they barter over human lives, the pit bosses who laugh as slaves collapse in the dust, the bounty hunters who stalk through the markets, their armor scratched and scarred, their gaze sharp as blades. They all serve the same master, whether through loyalty or fear. And you? You serve because you have no choice. The desert itself seems complicit in his dominion. The suns burn too bright, the storms strike too hard, the sand stretches too far. Escape is a fantasy crushed by reality. Even if you slipped your collar, even if you ran into the wastes, what then? No water, no shelter, no end to the heat. The desert will kill you faster than Jabba's hunters. You realize this, and the truth settles heavy in your chest. The Hutts do not need walls. The desert is their prison, and you are its captive. At night you lie awake on a bed of stone and dust, the stars gleaming above you. For a moment you imagine what it might be like to live without his shadow, to breathe without fear, to wake without chains. You wonder what freedom tastes like. Is it sweet? Is it sharp? Or is it only another illusion, another cruel trick of the galaxy to torment you with dreams you'll never touch? Your stomach twists as you imagine it because hope is dangerous. Hope is a chain you forge for yourself, and yet you can't help it. You whisper it to yourself into darkness, a prayer not to the Force, not to gods, but to the stars themselves. Let me be free. But the stars don't answer. They never do. The only sound is the laughter from Jabba's palace, echoing faintly across the dunes like thunder. You know, deep down, that no one is coming to save you. Not the Republic, not the Jedi, not even fate. The Hutts rule Tatooine as surely as the suns burn in its sky. Their shadow is endless, their hunger insatiable. And tomorrow, you will still wake in it, still work in it, still breathe in it, because that is what it means to live here. That is what it means to be a slave beneath the Hutts. But as you close your eyes, another thought creeps in. What if the shadow could be broken? What if someone, someday, could tear it apart? The idea is terrifying, impossible. And yet as the desert wind howls outside and the chains dig into your wrists, you feel that dangerous spark again, that whisper of freedom you're not supposed to have. And in that moment, you realize something. Shadows don't last forever. Even on Tatooine, even under twin suns, shadows can be burned away. But to reach that fire, to touch that impossible light, you will have to survive. And survival here means paying a cost you may not be strong enough to give. Because the Hutt's shadow does not just fall over you, it consumes you. And if you are not careful, it will devour you whole. The first time it shocks you, you think you're dying. 1 second you are breathing, sweating, working beneath the suns, and the next your body is no longer your own. It seizes, locks, trembles, a marionette pulled by invisible strings. Pain floods you, electric and merciless, as though fire itself has been poured into your veins. Your vision burns white, your teeth clamp so hard you taste blood, and for that brief eternity you cannot even scream. You collapse into the sand, twitching, gasping, praying it will stop. When it does, the silence is worse. Because you realize this, you are alive, but you do not belong to yourself anymore. You belong to the collar. The metal ring at your neck is not heavy, not really. It doesn't need to be. Its weight is not in the steel, it is in the fear. You feel it even when it isn't active, humming faintly against your skin, like a predator breathing down your spine. You learn quickly that it listens to you, not with ears, not with eyes, but with hunger. If you step out of line, if you falter, if you dare to dream of defiance, it answers. And its answer is agony. You run your fingers against it sometimes, when no one is looking, tracing the seam where metal meets flesh. There is no key, no clasp you can undo. It is welded shut, burned into place as surely as if it were a brand. You think about tearing it off. You think about clawing until your nails break, ripping skin and muscle away until the steel comes loose. But you don't. You never do. Because you know the truth. The collar would kill you before it let you go. Around you, every slave wears one, some at the neck, others at the wrist, a few embedded beneath the skin where you can't even see them. They glow faintly when triggered, a brief flicker of light before pain racks the body attached to it. You've seen strong men drop to their knees in an instant, their cries swallowed by the desert wind. You've seen mothers fall in the sand, clutching at their children with hands that no longer obey them. And you've seen what happens when someone pushes too far, when the shock doesn't stop. Their bodies stiffen, spasm, and then go still. The collar does not forgive. It does not negotiate. It kills without hesitation. The guards wield the controllers like gods holding lightning, small remotes, simple devices that fit in the palm of a hand, yet they hold more power than a blaster. Because blasters end lives. Collars control them. You watch the guards press those buttons casually, lazily, sometimes even for amusement, a laugh at the way someone crumples, a smile at the sound of strangled screams. For them, it is sport. For you, it is survival. The worst part isn't the pain, it's the waiting, the constant awareness that at any second, for any reason, the collar could spark to life. It makes you small. It makes you obedient. It makes you afraid of yourself. Every movement you make is careful. Every word you speak is measured. You don't want to give them a reason. But the truth is, you don't need to. They don't need excuses. They only need desire. And desire is cruel. At night, when the heat finally dies and the desert breathes cold across the stones, you lie awake with the collar pressing into your skin. You imagine what freedom would feel like without it, how light your neck would be, how loose your shoulders might feel. But the dream always dies the same way. You turn your head, and in the darkness you see the faint glow of another collar nearby. Someone else shifting, scratching, whispering under their breath. You are reminded that it isn't just your cage, it is everyone's. The collar is not just metal, it is the language of slavery, spoken across Tatooine in 100 voices of pain. There are rumors whispered among the slaves that somewhere far beyond the dunes there are places without collars, that the Republic has worlds where no one wears chains, where no one fears the spark at their throat. But even as you hear it, you don't believe. The collar teaches you not to, because even in silence it whispers back, "You are mine." You wonder sometimes if the Hutts invented them or if they simply perfected them. It doesn't matter. The effect is the same. With collars, they don't need whips, they don't need shackles, they don't even need walls. They have something far more powerful, your obedience, given freely, because the alternative is worse. That's the brilliance of the collar. It doesn't just punish rebellion, it erases the thought of it. One day, as you drag crates across the pit yard, you hear it again. A scream. Not loud, not long, just sharp. Cut off halfway by silence. You turn your head and see a boy no older than you convulsing in the dust. His collar glows, then fades. His chest heaves once, twice, and then stills. The guard shrugs, tosses the remote to his companion like a game, and walks away. Just another broken tool, just another life discarded. You stare at the boy's empty eyes, wide and unblinking, and the truth hits you harder than the sun's ever could. His last breath was not his own. It belonged to the collar. Your hands tremble as you return to work. You tell yourself you won't think about it. You can't think about it, because if you do, you'll break. But the thought clings like sand in your throat. The collar doesn't just kill the body, it kills the soul long before that. You can feel your own resolve cracking piece by piece every time it hums near your skin. How long before it breaks you completely? How long before you stop imagining freedom, before you stop whispering hope, before you stop being you? The night is colder than usual when the question comes. You're lying on your back, staring at the stars, when you realize you don't even know if you'll ever see them without this collar. You don't even know if you'll die wearing it. Maybe that's the cruelest fate of all, to carry the chain into the grave, never having known a moment without it. But as you think it, another sound breaks the silence. A voice, not cruel, not mocking, whispered, careful, close. Someone near you dares to speak words you've never heard before, words that are dangerous, words that could change everything. There is a way to break it. The desert wind carries the whisper away, but the fire it sparks inside you refuses to die. For the first time, you don't just feel the weight of the collar. You feel the possibility of its absence, and that thought alone is enough to terrify you more than the pain ever could. You don't remember the first time they put chains on your wrists. You were too young, too small, your memories blurred with sand and tears. But you do remember the feeling, cold metal pressed into skin that had barely known warmth, the rattle of links heavier than any toy you'd ever touched, the sound of adults speaking over your head as though you weren't there, as though you weren't human at all. That was your childhood, not laughter, not play, not freedom. Chains, always chains. You wake to the hiss of sand sliding across stone, the murmur of guards outside, the groan of a door pulled open far too early. You're still a child, though you don't feel like one anymore. Childhood is supposed to be discovery, wonder, joy. Yours is exhaustion, hunger, fear. The other children stir around you in the dim light of dawn, their eyes hollow, their faces caked with dust. There's no morning songs, no chatter of excitement about the day ahead. Only silence, heavy and suffocating. Because here, on Tatooine, children don't grow, they wither. The tasks begin before the suns even crest the horizon. Your hands, still small and fragile, are forced to lift loads too heavy for them. Crates filled with spare parts, scrap metal that cuts your palms, tools that feel as though they're made of stone. You stumble, you fall, and the lash answers. Not always on your back, sometimes across your legs, sometimes your arms. Anywhere the pain will teach you faster. You cry, but you don't let the tears last. Crying only wastes water, and water is more precious than innocence. You see other children around you all shackled by the same fate. Some are younger, their faces streaked with dirt and fear, their eyes wide as they try to mimic the movements of their elders. Some are older, their youth already stolen, their gazes hardened and empty. You realize quickly that there's no difference between you and him. Whether 5 or 15, boy or girl, you are all the same. Property. Childhood doesn't protect you here. Childhood condemns you, because the smaller you are, the easier you are to control. The desert sun rises higher, and by mid-morning the air is already thick with heat. Your skin prickles, burns, peels. You've never known the softness of shade for long. You've never known the comfort of a cool breeze. The suns are your constant companions, branding you each day like cattle. You taste blood in your mouth where your lips crack open, and you try not to lick them, because the salt of your own sweat only makes the thirst worse. You've learned to keep your tongue still, your body quiet, your mind locked away. Survival is silence. Survival is obedience. You think of games you've heard about, children on other worlds, racing through meadows, splashing in lakes, building towers from stone and wood. You've never seen a meadow. You've never touched a lake. Your towers are made of junk, piled high for your master's profit, never for your joy. Sometimes you pretend, in the privacy of your mind. You imagine the scraps you drag are blocks of color, that the broken tools you carry are toys, that the chain on your wrist is a bracelet of silver meant to shine in the sun. But the illusion never lasts. The crack of a whip always brings you back. You try to remember your parents if you had them, the face of a mother, the hand of a father. You remember warmth, perhaps, a voice singing softly, But maybe those are dreams, stitched together by a child desperate for something he's never had. On Tatooine, family is not a certainty. Family is a commodity. Families are torn apart at markets. Mothers sold one way, children another. Fathers lost to debts they can never repay. Love is a luxury the Hutts do not allow. You were born into a world where your first breath was already owned by someone else. There are moments that haunt you most. The laughter of free children in the streets above the slave quarters, their voices bright, carefree, untethered. You hear them as you work, and each sound cuts like glass. Because you are reminded of what you are not. You are reminded of the life you'll never have. Sometimes you hate them for it, those children who have never tasted chains. Sometimes you envy them, and sometimes you wish you'd never heard them at all, because silence would be kinder than the reminder. Your hands blister, your nails split, your bones ache. Still, you are pushed to work. You learn early that complaining is suicide. No one listens, no one cares. The guards mock, the masters ignore, and the other slaves look away because they know they could be next. So you swallow your cries, you bite down your anger, you bury every spark of rebellion deep inside. Childhood is supposed to be fire. Yours is ash. The worst part isn't the labor, it's the knowledge that this is all you will ever know. You see it in the faces of the older slaves, their bodies broken, their eyes resigned. They were children once, like you. They carried the same chains, the same hunger, the same fear, and now, decades later, nothing has changed. The only difference is that the chains have worn deeper grooves into their skin. That will be you if you live long enough. Childhood doesn't end on Tatooine. It only fades into a longer slavery. At night, when the work is done and the suns finally die, you lie on the stone floor and stare at the ceiling. You trace the cracks with your eyes, pretending they are constellations, pretending they lead to star deer. Us you'll never see. Some children whisper stories, tales of Jedi Knights who free the oppressed, of rebels who rise against tyrants. You want to believe them. You want to imagine that somewhere out there, someone is fighting for you, but the collar at your throat hums faintly, and you know the truth. No one is coming. Not for you, not for anyone. You dream sometimes. Dreams of running through fields of grass, of drinking from streams, of feeling a breeze that isn't choked with sand. In your dreams, the chains are gone, the collar is gone, the guards are gone. You are free, you laugh, you sing, you breathe, but then you wake, and the chain rattles, and the desert greets you again. Dreams are cruel on Tatooine. They give you hope only to steal it when the suns rise. Still, a part of you clings to them, because without dreams, you are nothing. Without dreams, the chains win, and even as you know they always will, you hold on to them anyway, because sometimes hope is the only rebellion left to a child in chains. But tonight, as you close your eyes, the dreams feel different, sharper, closer. A face flickers in your mind, not yours, not someone you know. A boy with bright eyes, brighter than the sun's, filled with something dangerous, filled with belief. You don't know who he is, you don't know if he's real. But the image lingers, refusing to fade, and for the first time, you wonder if maybe, just maybe, not every childhood here will end in chains. Hunger is not just an ache in your stomach, it is a voice. It whispers when you work, when you try to sleep, when you dare to dream. It starts small, like a murmur in the distance, a quiet reminder that you have not eaten. But as the suns climb higher, it grows louder, sharp as a scream, impossible to ignore. Hunger owns you here as surely as the Hutts do, and on Tatooine, it is never silent. You rise before dawn, already weak. Your body feels like sand has filled it, heavy and hollow at the same time. Your stomach twists, a knot that never loosens. You try to stretch, but your limbs ache, your joints stiff from too many nights lying on stone. When you stand, the dizziness hits, and the ground shifts beneath you. For a moment you wonder if you will fall, if you will simply crumble into the dust and never rise again. But the guards shout, and you move, because even hunger must bow to fear. The desert greets you with its usual cruelty. Heat presses down, even though the suns have barely risen. Wind stirs dust into the air, filling your mouth, scratching your throat. You cough and it burns. You lick your lips, but they are cracked and dry, blood mingling with the taste of grit. There is no breakfast waiting for you. There never is. The day begins on an empty stomach, and the hours that follow only deepen the void inside. Work is worse when you are hungry. Every crate feels heavier, every step longer. Your muscles tremble faster, your arms tire sooner. Sweat stings your eyes, but there is no strength to wipe it away. You hear the rumble of your stomach, but you learn to silence it, to clench your teeth until the sound dies. Hunger is a weakness, and weakness invites punishment. You look around, and you see the same in every face. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, lips cracked like the desert floor. The other slaves move like ghosts. Their bodies present, but their spirits elsewhere. Here, drifting between survival and surrender, a child stumbles, his knees buckling beneath him, and for a moment you think he won't rise. But he does, because he must. Hunger won't let him stop. Not yet. Food comes late, as it always does. A single ration, thrown into the dust like scraps for an animal. You scramble forward with the others, hands clawing, voices rising, the desperation raw. You catch yourself in the chaos, seeing what you've become, an animal fighting for crumbs, a life reduced to this. But pride doesn't fill an empty stomach. Pride doesn't keep you alive. You reach anyway, fingers closing around a piece of bread so small it disappears into your palm. You eat it slowly, forcing each bite to last. The bread is hard, stale, its edges sharp enough to scrape the inside of your mouth. Sand clings to it, but you do not brush it off. You chew, you swallow, and it tastes of dust more than grain. Still, it is something. You close your eyes, forcing yourself to savor it, pretending for a moment that it is more than it is. But the illusion fades with the last swallow, and hunger returns, louder than before. Water is worse. A dented cup passed from hand to hand, each sip smaller than the last. By the time it reaches you, the liquid inside is warm, metallic, laced with grit. You drink it anyway, tilting the cup until the last drop slides onto your tongue. It doesn't quench your thirst, it only teases it. Like a cruel joke, the desert laughs through your cracked lips, and you hate it. You remember stories, whispers of worlds where food grows on trees, where rivers run clear, where children eat until they are full. You try to imagine it, but your mind refuses. Your hunger twists the images into lies. Trees crumble into dust, rivers dry into sand, plates shatter into emptiness. The galaxy beyond Tatooine feels like another dream, one you were never meant to see. The worst part isn't the emptiness in your stomach. It's the way hunger changes you. It makes you look at others differently. Their share of food becomes a target, their weakness an opportunity. You catch yourself thinking it when you see another slave drop a scrap, when you hear the slosh of water in someone else's cup. You hate yourself for it. But hunger doesn't care about hate. Hunger makes you selfish. Hunger makes you cruel. Hunger makes you less than human, and that's what the Hutts want. They don't feed you enough because they know hunger is another collar, another chain. A starving slave doesn't dream of rebellion. A starving slave only dreams of the next bite, the next sip, the next moment of relief. Hunger breaks you without a whip, without a shock. Hunger makes you obedient. The suns climb higher, and the day drags on. You grow weaker, your vision blurs, your head pounds with every heartbeat. At one point you collapse to your knees, the world tilting around you. A guard's shadow falls across you and you brace for the pain, but it doesn't come. Instead he laughs, a harsh sound that cuts deeper than a lash. He leaves you there, knowing the desert itself will finish the punishment. You push yourself up again, slowly, painfully, because you refuse to give him that satisfaction. You keep moving, though every step feels like it might be your last. By evening, the hunger is unbearable. It feels alive, gnawing at your insides, clawing against your ribs. You clutch your stomach, but it doesn't help. Nothing does. When another ration is thrown your way, you grab it without thought. You devour it too quickly this time, the sharp edges of the bread scraping your throat, the taste of mold clinging to your tongue. You gag, but you swallow, because even rot is better than nothing. Night falls, and you lie awake on the stone floor, your body too restless to sleep. Hunger doesn't rest. It twists in your gut. It claws at your chest. It whispers in your ear. You stare at the stars through a crack in the ceiling, and you wonder if anyone up there knows what it feels like to live this way, to be empty, to be hollow, to be consumed by something that never ends. And then, as you close your eyes, you hear it, a whisper, not from the desert, not from the stars, but from within yourself, a thought you don't dare speak aloud. If hunger is a chain, what would it feel like to break it? The question terrifies you, because hunger is all you've ever known. If you broke free of it, would you even know who you are? The market is alive before the suns even crest the horizon. You hear it first. Voices rising and colliding, merchants shouting prices, the metallic clang of cages dragged across stone. Then comes the smell, spice burning in clay pots, the sharp tang of sweat clinging to unwashed bodies, the sour stench of fear that hangs heavier than the desert air itself. And then, finally, you see it, the market of flesh. You shuffle forward, the chain between your ankles rattling with every step, the collar at your throat humming faintly as though reminding you to behave. The crowd is thick, pressing in from every side, their robes brushing against your skin, their hands reaching out, not to comfort, not to save, but to appraise. You are not a person here. You are livestock, a body to be priced, a tool to be bartered, a piece of property to be bought and sold. The cages line the street like trophies, each one filled with eyes that do not dare look up. Rhodians, Twi'leks, humans, Nikto. Species do not matter here. Flesh is flesh. The only thing that changes is the number of credits exchanged. You watch as a Twi'lek girl is dragged out of her cage, her leku bound with crude rope, her wrists blistered from restraints. The buyer inspects her as if examining an animal, pulling her chin up, running a hand along her arms, asking questions as though she isn't there to hear them. Strong enough to work? Young enough to last? Obedient enough to obey? When the deal is struck, her chains are tugged and she stumbles away into another life of servitude. You don't even hear her name. No one asks. Names don't matter in the market of flesh. You stand still, but inside everything shakes. Your heart hammers, your stomach twists, your palms sweat against the rough edges of the chain. You want to scream, to run, to disappear into the dunes, but the collar hums again, a phantom warning, and you know Betty. This is not a place of escape. This is not a place of choice. This is a place of sale. The crowd around you is loud, their voices clashing with the guttural barks of Hutts, the clipped tones of basic, the rasping growls of alien tongues. Words like credits and cheap and worth pierce the noise, sharp as blades. You are weighed not by who you are, but by what you can endure. Your strength, your youth, your health, all of it reduced to numbers in someone else's ledger. You catch fragments of sentences. This one looks strong. That one won't last. Not worth the feed. The words slice deeper than any whip because they aren't wrong. On Tatooine, your worth is not yours to decide. A hand reaches toward you, rough fingers gripping your chin, tilting your face upward. You meet the eyes of a Toydarian trader, his wings buzzing, his expression flat and calculating. He mutters something in Hutts, spits in the sand, and lets you go. You feel relief for half a heartbeat before dread creeps in. He didn't choose you. Not today. But tomorrow? Tomorrow he might. The hours stretch, each one a torment of waiting. You watch others being sold, their lives decided in an instant, their futures slipping away with the clink of coins. Some cry, their voices breaking against the indifference of the crowd. Some go silent, their eyes empty, already surrendered. You don't know which is worse, to fight and be broken, or to be broken before the fight. The suns climb higher, baking the market in merciless heat. The stones beneath your feet grow so hot you feel them burning through the thin soles of your sandals. Sweat drips down your back, stinging where the chain has rubbed your skin raw. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, your throat parched, but no water comes. The buyers sip from goblets as they browse, the liquid glinting in the sun, but not a drop is offered to you. Hunger gnaws, thirst burns, but the market does not care. Suffering is part of the show. You catch sight of a boy, no older than you, being pushed onto the platform. He stumbles, nearly falling, but a guard yanks him upright by the collar. The crowd laughs. The boy bites his lip, holding back tears, his eyes darting across the sea of faces. For a moment, your gazes meet. His are wide, terrified, pleading, and in that look you see yourself. You see what you are, what you will always be here, a product. The bidding begins, voices rising, numbers climbing. The boy's life is traded back and forth like a game, like entertainment. His fate is sealed not by courage or choice, but by the highest offer. When the deal is done, the guard shoves him forward, and the boy disappears into the crowd. His eyes linger in your mind long after he is gone. You wonder what will happen when your turn comes. Will they see strength in you or weakness? Will you be sold for work in the pits or the mines or worse? The thought gnaws at you, and you realize that hope is a luxury you cannot afford, because in the market of flesh, hope is another lie, another illusion meant to make the chains hurt less. The day drags on, the noise relentless, the heat suffocating. You lose track of time, your mind drifting between exhaustion and fear. You imagine what freedom would feel like, what it would taste like, what it would sound like, but the caller hums again, and you remember. Bear, freedom does not exist here. Only chains, only credits, only flesh. As the suns begin to set, the crowd thins, the merchants pack their wares, the cages grow quieter. You are led back, your body weak, your spirit hollow, but something lingers in your chest, sharp and dangerous. The memory of that boy's eyes, the silent question they asked, "Is this all we are?" You don't know the answer, but as the guards shove you back into the darkness of your cell, you realize you might not want to know. Because tomorrow, it might be you on that platform. Tomorrow, it might be your name erased, your life sold. And tomorrow, you will discover that in the market of flesh, there are fates worse than chains. It begins as a murmur in the dark, a sound so faint you wonder if it's only the wind pushing through the cracks in the slave quarters, carrying lies the way sand carries heat. But then you hear it again, low voices, cautious, almost trembling, words exchanged in the shadows when the guards have grown lazy, when the crack of the whip has gone silent, when the suns are gone and the desert cools enough to breathe again. They are whispers of escape. You lie on the cold stone floor, your body aching from the day's labor, your stomach hollow, your throat dry. Sleep should take you easily, but the voices keep pulling you back, sharp as a knife in the silence. You strain to listen. The whispers are not loud, not bold, but they carry something more dangerous than any shout. They carry hope. A man speaks first, his tone barely more than a growl. "The storm's coming tomorrow, hard and fast. The guards won't see." Another voice, softer, younger, answers, "We could use the chaos. Slip out, disappear into the dunes." A third interrupts, bitter and sharp, "Disappear into the dunes and die. You can't outrun the desert, you can't outrun them." The voices fade, swallowed by the night, but their echo lingers inside you. Escape. The word alone feels forbidden, a crime spoken aloud. It stirs something inside you, something you'd buried beneath hunger and chains. You turn the thought over in your mind, like a shard of glass you can't let go of even though it cuts your hand. Could you run? Could you survive? You imagine it, your feet pounding across the sand, the collar silent at your throat, no whip behind you, no chains holding you. The idea is intoxicating, but then the other image comes. The desert swallowing you whole, your body buried in dunes, your bones picked clean by scavengers. Hope and death blur together until you can't tell the difference. The next day the whispers follow you like shadows. As you drag crates across the pit yard, as you scrub grease from engines, as you lift tools too heavy for your arms, you hear them in your mind. Escape. Every guard step feels louder, every glance sharper. You flinch when a controller hums, convinced they've heard the word too, that the collar will sear your skin for daring to think it. But nothing happens. The guards bark the same orders, the suns burn the same way, the hunger claws at your stomach as it always does, and still, the whisper lingers. At night you hear more, new voices. A woman this time, old, her voice cracked like the desert floor. "I saw the maps once. There's a settlement beyond the wastes, far from Jabba's eyes. People there take in runaways." Another cuts in, harsh and desperate. "Lies. You'd never make it that far. Not without water, not without help." The argument rises, then dies quickly, silence swallowing it again. No one wants to risk the guards hearing, but the seed is planted. You close your eyes, and for the first time, your dreams are not of chains, but of running. You imagine it so vividly that you can almost feel it. The cool wind on your face as you crest a dune, the stars stretching endless above you, The ground no longer a prison, but a path. You imagine the collar breaking, falling away, the chain slipping from your wrist, the whip snapping in empty air as you vanish into freedom. Your chest tightens with the thought, your breath quickens, your heart pounds as if your body itself is ready to run, and then you wake to the cold stone, the collar still there, the chain still heavy. Dreams are cruel. They give you wings only to remind you they're broken. The days pass, and the whispers spread. You hear them in the market, in the yards, even in the silence of the palace halls. No one speaks them openly, but you see the look in their eyes, the flicker of thought, the glance at the horizon, the pause when the desert wind howls. Everyone is thinking the same thing. Could I? But the desert is not the only enemy. The bounty hunters make sure of that. You've seen them drag runaways back before. Faces bruised, bodies broken, chains heavier than before. You've seen the guards laugh as collars spark again, punishing every nerve until the body collapses. You remember the boy who tried to slip away during a sandstorm, only to be paraded through the market the next day, his spirit gone, his eyes empty. They didn't kill him. Death would have been mercy. They kept him alive because suffering is more useful than corpses. That's the price of escape here. Not freedom, not death, but punishment. Still, the whispers don't stop. They grow. They spread, because even punishment seems better than silence, and you find yourself listening closer, leaning in, craving every fragment of a plan, every rumor of safety, every shred of possibility. The thought terrifies you, but it also sustains you. Hunger gnaws, thirst burns, chains rattle, but the whisper is louder now, louder than the pain. One night you dare to speak. Your voice shakes so quiet you barely hear yourself. What if it worked? The others turn, their eyes sharp, their expressions unreadable. For a moment, no one answers. Then the old woman nods slowly, her eyes gleaming in the dark. Then we'd be free. The words settle heavy in the silence. Free, the most dangerous word of all. You lie awake long after the voices fade, staring at the ceiling, your heart racing. You know the risks. You know the desert kills. You know the hunters never fail. You know the collars will burn you alive before they let you go. And yet, the thought refuses to leave. It clings to you, sharp and desperate, the way hunger does, the way thirst does, the way fear does. For the first time, you wonder if fear can be turned into something else, into courage. The next morning, the storm begins to gather. You see it on the horizon, a wall of sand rising, shifting, devouring the sky. The air grows heavy, the wind sharpens, the light dims beneath the rolling cloud. The guards curse, their voices rising, their attention pulled to the chaos building beyond the walls. And beside you, one of the other slaves meets your gaze. His eyes burn with the same thought, the same whisper you've carried for days. Now, your stomach twists. Your legs tremble, your throat tightens, the storm roars closer, and for the first time you feel something more powerful than fear. You feel choice. The sand begins to howl, the sky begins to darken, and you realize that tonight the whispers will no longer be whispers, they will become action. The first time you hear a pod racer ignite, it doesn't sound like an engine. It sounds like a beast, a guttural roar that shakes the air, rattles the ground beneath your feet, and makes your chest feel like it might split apart. The noise cuts through the desert silence like lightning, a sound too powerful, too alive to be contained. You freeze, your ears ringing, your heart pounding. This is not work, not labor. It is something far more dangerous. This is the sound of death, dressed as sport. You are led into the pits at dawn. Your chains clinking against stone, your skin already burning from the suns above. The smell hits first. Oil thick in the air, sharp enough to sting your nose, mingled with the tang of ozone and the sour musk of sweat. The ground is slick with grease, dark stains marking where repairs have been made, where wreckage has been dragged, where blood has spilled. You swallow hard, but the taste of metal coats your tongue as if the air itself has been soaked in iron. The pod racers tower above you, monstrous machines of steel and flame. Twin turbines, each larger than a speeder, linked by fragile cables that hum with restrained energy. They glow faintly, alive even when dormant, as though waiting to strike. You're told to clean, to haul, to scrape the sand from their edges, but as your hands brush the cold metal, you feel like you're touching something alive, something that doesn't belong to you but owns you all the same. The masters say working the pits is a privilege. They say it with a sneer, as if you should be grateful to be so close to the machines, to witness the races that make most Espa tremble. But privilege tastes bitter when you see the wreckage. Scorched helmets, shattered harnesses, fragments of metal twisted beyond recognition. You find yourself staring at them longer than you should, imagining the screams, the final moments of those who say, "Tea in the cockpits." Some of those bodies were slaves like you, pilots chosen not because they wanted to race but because they had no choice, because death in the arena was cheaper than life in the yards. The crowd above the pits is deafening, even before the races begin. Their cheers thunder like the engines themselves, echoing through the canyon walls, a sound of hunger and cruelty. They come not for sport, not for competition, but for carnage. They want crashes, they want fire, they want to see lives extinguished in bursts of flame and shrapnel. You feel their gaze, even in the shadows of the pit, and you realize something that chills you deeper than the desert night. To them, you are no different from the pilots, disposable, replaceable, entertainment. The pilots move past you, some proud, some trembling. Their suits reek of oil and fear, their visors reflecting the fire of the engines. You glimpse their faces, Rhodians, Dug, humans, all with the same tightness in their eyes, the same knowledge that this could be their last sunrise. Some sneer at you as they pass, slaves no different than the guards in their cruelty. Others look away, as if ashamed to let you see their fear. You want to hate them, but you can't, because you know deep down they are slaves too. Slaves to speed, to pride, to the Hutts' greed. The collar around their necks is just invisible. When the engines ignite, the world becomes a storm. The air shudders with the force of it, your chest pounding in rhythm with turbines that scream like dying gods. Sand whirls into your eyes, stinging, blinding. Heat washes over you, waves of fire that burn your skin, even from meters away. You stumble back, covering your face, but the guards shove you forward, ordering you to work, to check the cables, to tighten the bolts. You obey, though your hands shake, though every nerve in your body screams to run. And then, the race begins. The pod racers blast from the pits, engines roaring like thunder across the desert flats. The ground trembles as they pass, the sheer force of their speed pulling at your body, dragging the air from your lungs. You look up, your eyes wide, and for a moment you forget the chains, the collar, the guards. For a moment you see only freedom. The machines soar, untethered, wild, leaving everything behind in their wake. And you feel a hunger stronger than the one in your stomach. A hunger for that speed, that escape, that impossible sky. But freedom is an illusion. The first crash reminds you of that. A pod racer clips a canyon wall, one engine exploding in a burst of fire. The machine spins, tears apart, shrapnel raining down into the sand. The pilot's scream is cut short, swallowed by the roar of the crowd above. You see smoke rising black against the golden sky, and you realize there is nothing glorious here. This is not freedom. This is a cage built of speed and fire, a spectacle meant to consume lives for profit. The crowd cheers louder, as if death is victory, as if the pilot's life was never worth more than the crash. You return to work after the race, your body aching, your hands black with grease. You carry wreckage from the pits, dragging twisted metal still warm from the fire. The smell of burned flesh clings to it, and you gag, but you keep moving. You don't have a choice. The guards laugh at your revulsion, their voices sharp as blades. To them, it's all the same. A corpse is just another piece of debris to be cleared. Night falls, but the noise of the crowd lingers, echoing through your skull long after they've gone. You lie on the cold stone floor, your muscles trembling, your ears ringing with phantom engines. You can still feel the heat of the turbines on your skin, still taste the metallic air in your mouth. Sleep does not come silly. When it does, you dream of fire. You dream of engines, you dream of speed, and when you wake, your chest aches with a longing you cannot kill. The next race is already being prepared. You see a new pilot enter the pits, a boy, younger than you, with eyes brighter than the twin suns. He works alongside you, his small hands quick, precise, unafraid of the engines that make you tremble. You don't know his name, but you feel something strange as you watch him. He doesn't look at the pod racers like they're monsters. He looks at them like they're his, like they belong to him. The guards shout, the masters sneer, but the boy just keeps working, his gaze steady, his hands steady. And in that moment, you feel the whisper of something you thought was long dead. Hope. It terrifies you more than the engines ever could, because if a child can dream of freedom here, in the pits of death, maybe you can too. But the engines roar again, drowning the thought, reminding you of the truth. Freedom is an illusion, and tomorrow you may be the one dragging another corpse from the sand. Still, you can't shake the image of the boy's eyes, bright, defiant, burning against the darkness. And you wonder as you stare at the ceiling that night if maybe, just maybe, the desert hasn't killed every dream yet. You learn quickly on Tatooine that not all monsters crawl out of the desert. Some wear fine robes, dripping with gold rings and jeweled chains. Some speak gently, their words smooth as silk, their smiles warm as suns. But you know better. You've seen what hides behind those smiles. You've lived beneath those hands. Monsters don't always roar. Sometimes they whisper. And sometimes the whisper cuts deeper than any whip. Your master is no Hutt, no slug of flesh ruling from a palace of shadows. He is smaller, leaner, his wings buzzing when he grows angry, his eyes sharp as knives. A Toydarian, fat on your suffering, who trades in lives the way others trade in credits. He doesn't beat you often, not like some masters do. He doesn't need to. His words are enough. When he speaks, you feel the weight of your collar, the chain at your wrist, the truth of what you are, property. He tells you once that you're lucky. Lucky to belong to him. Lucky he doesn't throw you into the mines. Lucky he doesn't sell you to Jabba's pits. Lucky you have work, food, water. You nod, because what else can you do? But inside, the word burns like acid. Lucky. Lucky to live as less than human. Lucky to suffer for another's profit. You whisper the word to yourself later, tasting its bitterness, wondering if luck and cruelty are the same thing on this world. And yet, there are moments, fleeting, dangerous, when his mask shifts. He gives you scraps when others starve. He shields you once from a guard's whip, waving him away with a flick of his hand. He lets you linger near the podracers, lets you work with your hands on engines that roar with power. For a moment, you wonder if it is kindness. For a moment, you wonder if monsters can care. But you learn the truth quickly. Every act of mercy is a chain. Every kindness comes with a price. When he feeds you, he expects obedience. When he protects you, he man's loyalty. When he lets you work near the pod racers, he reminds you that your skill belongs to him, not to you. His generosity is a leash, invisible but strong, wrapping tighter every time you reach for it. And you realize that monsters don't always kill their prey. Sometimes they fatten it first. The streets of Mos Espa are filled with masters like him, some cruel, their whips cracking before their words. Some indulgent, dressing their slaves in silks to show off wealth, as if chains shine brighter when polished. Some careless, forgetting the names of those they own, forgetting even their faces. But whether cruel, indulgent, or careless, they are all the same. Masters. Monsters. The difference is only in the mask they wear. You remember the day a new slave arrived at the yard, trembling and wide-eyed, her face streaked with dirt. She whispered that maybe this master would be different. Maybe he would be kinder. Maybe he would see her as more than a tool. You wanted to believe her. You wanted to imagine it could be true. But weeks passed, and you saw the hope leave her eyes, burned out by the same truth that burned you. Masters may smile. Masters may laugh. Masters may even show kindness. But in the end, monsters always reveal themselves. The city itself teaches you this lesson. Walk the markets, and you see it everywhere. Buyers inspecting bodies like droids, sellers bargaining over lives with greasy hands and greedy eyes. Some laugh as they buy children, their voices light, as if the cruelty is nothing at all. Others sneer, dragging their new property away as though hauling cargo. The worst are the ones who act gentle, who pat your shoulder, who tell you it won't be so bad. Because you know it will. You know it always will. At night, you lie awake in the dust, your stomach aching, your skin raw, your mind circling the same truth. You are caught between monsters who pretend to be kind and monsters who don't bother pretending at all. Which is worse, the lash you can see or the chain hidden in a smile? You don't know. And maybe that's the cruelty of it, that you even ask, that you even wonder. You close your eyes, and their voices echo in your head. Lucky, grateful, fortunate. Words spat like venom, words disguised as gifts. You hate them, you hate yourself for listening, and you hate this world that forces you to choose which monster you'll serve tomorrow. You turn over, your collar pressing into your skin, and you whisper the truth to yourself. A truth no one else will say. There are no good masters, only monsters. But still, there is something else. A memory, a boy in the pits, younger than you, his eyes burning brighter than the sun's. He looked at the pod racers not with fear, not with despair, but with belief. Belief in something beyond chains, beyond monsters, beyond Tatooine itself. You can't shake that image. It haunts you more than any master's cruelty, because if he can believe, maybe you can too. And that thought is dangerous. The next day, you're dragged into the pit again, your hands greasy, your arms trembling from labor. Your master hovers nearby, wings buzzing, his eyes sharp. He smiles at you, and you feel the chain tighten though he hasn't touched it. You bow your head, obedient, silent. But inside, the whisper grows louder. There are no good masters, only monsters. You clutch that whisper like a weapon, sharp and secret, hidden where no collar can reach. Because one day, you tell yourself, the mask will slip. One day, the monster will show its true face, and on that day, you will not bow. The thought chills you, terrifies you, but you do not let it go. You carry it with you into the night, into the silence, into the dreams that are not safe but necessary. And as you close your eyes, you hear another sound, not the buzz of Toydarian wings, not the laughter of masters, not the crack of whips. You hear engines, roaring, wild, free, and you wonder if the boy with the burning eyes will be the one to prove your whisper true. The first time you hear the arena, it feels alive. Not the kind of life that brings joy, not laughter or song, but something darker. A life made from blood and fire, from fear and cruelty, from screams swallowed by the roar of a crowd that has forgotten mercy. The sound hits you before you even see the place, echoing across the dunes like thunder. A rising wave of voices, surging and crashing, hungry for violence. By the time you stand before its gates, your chest is already tight, your palms slick with sweat. The air smells of dust, oil, and something sharper, iron, thick in the back of your throat. You know that smell. You've tasted it before in your own blood. The gates creak open, and you are pushed forward with the others. The stone beneath your feet is hot, rough, worn smooth by countless lives dragged across it. The light inside is dim at first. Torches flickering against walls scarred with claw marks and stains too dark to be anything but blood. The sound grows louder with every step, the roar of the crowd above vibrating through the stone like the heartbeat of a monster. You want to cover your ears, to shut it out, but the chain between your wrists rattles, reminding you that your body is not yours to command. The arena floor is vast, carved deep into the desert, its walls towering like cliffs of stone. The sand stretches wide, golden and red, but it is not clean. It is soaked with years of violence. You see dark patches where the blood never washed away, shards of bone half buried in the dust, broken weapons glinting under the twin suns. Above, the crowd is a storm, 1,000 voices rising as one, their cheers drowning the cries of the doomed. Their faces blur together, a sea of greed and hunger, every eye fixed on the spectacle below. You are not here to fight, not today. You are here to serve, to clean, to drag bodies when the screams go silent. That is you. Or roll. That is your mercy. But as you stand in the shadows waiting for the games to begin, you realize there is no mercy here. Not for the fighters. Not for you. Not for anyone. The announcer's voice booms, amplified by speakers that crackle with static. He shouts in Hutts, his words sharp and guttural, calling out names that mean nothing to you but ignite the crowd into frenzy. Gates open, and figures step into the light. Some are gladiators, armed with blades and staffs, their bodies scarred from battles past. Some are slaves, trembling, unarmed, pushed forward as fodder. And some are beasts, dragged in chains, their roars shaking the very air. Rancors, massifs, creatures from worlds you will never see, their eyes wild with rage. The fight begins, and the screams follow. Blades clash, metal on metal, sparks flying, beasts charge, claws ripping through flesh, teeth sinking into bone. The air fills with the sound of agony, shouts, cries, gurgled pleas. The smell of blood grows thicker, mixing with the dust kicked up by frantic feet. You watch a man fall, his chest split open, his scream cut short as the crowd roars louder, their hunger fed. Another tries to run, but the collar at his neck flashes, and he convulses, collapsing into the sand before the beast tears him apart. The audience laughs, laughter at death. You grip the chain at your wrist, your knuckles white, your stomach twisting. You want to look away, but you can't. You can't because the guards watch you too, their eyes sharp, their hands ready on the controllers. You are forced to see, forced to bear witness. The arena is not just for those who fight, it is for those who watch, to remind you of what happens when you resist, when you fail, when you dare to dream of freedom. Every scream is a lesson, every corpse a warning. You drag the bodies when it ends. Your hands grip cold limbs, slick with blood, heavy with silence. You pull them across the sand, leaving trails that will soon be covered by new blood. The smell clings to you, seeping into your skin, your clothes, your very breath. You scrub your hands raw afterward, but it never leaves. You carry it with you, always. The arena brands you in ways no whip ever could. At night, you lie awake, the screams replaying in your mind. They echo louder in the silence, sharper in the dark. You try to block them out, but they crawl under your skin, nestling in your bones. You wonder if this is what the arena is truly for. Not the crowd, not the spectacle, but you. To break you without ever dragging you into the sand yourself. To make you feel the fear so deeply that you never think of escape again. But then you remember something. The boy in the pits, the one with the burning eyes. He saw the engines and believed in freedom. And now you wonder, could someone look at this horror and still dream? Could someone survive the screams and still find hope? The thought feels impossible, yet it lingers. Because if the arena is meant to kill your spirit, then maybe the greatest rebellion is to let it live. The next day, you hear whispers again, not of escape this time, but of rebellion. A fighter in the arena who did not obey. A slave who struck at his master before the beast tore him down. The crowd had roared louder than ever, their hunger fed, their laughter sharp. But beneath it, you heard something else. A sound not meant for you, not meant for the guards. A sound buried in the storm of voices. A cheer, faint, brief, but real. Someone cheered for the rebel. You carry that sound with you into the night. You clutch it like a secret, a spark buried in the ashes. And as you close your eyes, the screams return. But now, layered beneath them, you hear something new. Not just fear, not just pain, but defiance. And you wonder, as you drift into uneasy sleep, if one day those screams might belong not to the dying, but to the rising. The desert does not whisper tonight. It howls. You hear it long before you see it, a low growl rolling across the dunes, a sound older than any master, older than any hut. The storm announces itself like a beast, stretching across the horizon, a wall of shadow devouring the stars. Wind lashes at your face, carrying grains of sand that sting like tiny blades, sharp enough to draw blood. The air tastes metallic, dry as bone, each breath like swallowing fire. And you know what is coming, the fury of Tatooine storms. The guards shove you toward the workyards anyway, their voices harsh, their hands cruel. They don't care about the storm. They don't care about you. To them, the desert is a weapon, not a danger. Let the slaves suffer in it. Let the wind scour their skin. Let the sand flay their flesh. Pain is free, and Tatooine has more than enough to give. The sky darkens as the wall of sand approaches, swallowing the light of the twin suns. Shadows twist across the ground, long and jagged, and the temperature drops so fast your skin prickles. You glance at the others, faces tight with fear, eyes wide, chains rattling as they shuffle faster. Some mutter prayers under their breath, words you don't recognize. gods you've never known. You wonder if they're listening, those gods. You wonder if they've ever listened. The storm hits like a fist. Wind tears through the yard, screaming in your ears, ripping at your clothes, slamming against your chest. Sand pelts your skin, each grain a needle, filling your mouth, your eyes, your lungs. You choke, coughing, spitting grit, but there is no escape. The air itself is sand now. It grinds between your teeth, scrapes down your throat, buries itself in your hair and clothes until you feel less like a person and more like part of the desert itself. You stumble forward, half blind, your chains dragging heavy in the sand. The guards shout, their voices faint in the roar, their shapes little more than shadows in the storm. You see one raise a whip, but the wind tears the crack away, devouring the sound. Another clutches at his cloak, stumbling as the storm pushes him back. For a heartbeat, you feel something dangerous. Justice. Because in the storm, master and slave suffer the same. But the thought dies quickly. Because you know what happens when the storm passes. The masters will retreat to their shelters, to rooms of stone and warmth, while you will be left to rebuild. Always rebuild. Always repair. The storm doesn't care who it destroys, but the rebuilding will always fall on you. That's the cruelty of it. The desert doesn't choose sides, but the Hutts always do. Lightning flashes in the distance, a jagged streak across the blackened sky. For an instant, the world is frozen in white, faces twisted in fear, bodies bent against the wind, chains pulled taut. And then the light is gone, replaced by deeper darkness, the storm closing tighter around you. You think of the arena, of screams swallowed by the roar of a crowd. This storm is an arena too. Only here, the desert itself is the beast. You drop to your knees, shielding your face, your arms raw from the endless pelting of sand. Every breath is agony, your lungs burning, your chest tight. You want to stop. You want to lie down. Let the storm bury you. Let the desert take you once and for all. But you don't. Somehow you rise. Somehow your legs move. Somehow you endure. Because you've learned that survival is not about strength. It's about stubbornness. About refusing to die even when the world demands it. Through the chaos you see figures moving. Other slaves. Their forms bent low, their chains dragging behind them. You hear their coughs, their cries, but the storm swallows everything. You try to reach for one. A boy younger than you, his small frame almost lost in the sand. But your hand closes on nothing, the storm pulling him away, swallowing him whole. His cry fades, replaced by the endless howl of the wind. You want to chase him, but the chain at your wrist yanks you back, and you fall. The sand burns your face as you hit the ground, the taste of blood sharp on your tongue. You scream, but the storm steals even that. Time loses meaning. Minutes, hours, it all blurs into survival. Into pain, into the endless fury of the desert. Your body becomes a machine, each step mechanical, each breath a battle. You are no longer human, you are dust, you are grit, you are one with the storm. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it ends. The wind slows, the roar fades, the sand settles. The world reappears, broken and strange, the dunes reshaped, the air heavy with silence. You lift your head, your body trembling, your throat raw, your skin scraped raw and bleeding. Around you, shapes rise slowly from the sand. Slaves, guards, all covered in the same dust, all hollow-eyed, all silent. For a moment you see the truth. In the storm, there are no masters, no servants, only survivors. But the moment doesn't last. And the guards recover first, their shouts breaking the silence, their whips cracking once more. Chains rattle as slaves are shoved back into line, back into order, back into the system that never breaks. The storm may have passed, but the fury lingers. And you know what comes next. Rebuilding. Always rebuilding. Walls must be raised, tools repaired, goods recovered. The masters will demand it, and you will obey. Because what choice do you have? As you drag your body forward, your muscles screaming, your hands raw, you realize something that chills you deeper than the storm ever could. The desert is not your enemy. It never was. The desert is only a mirror, reflecting the truth of Tatooine. The storm rages, and you suffer. The storm ends, and you suffer still. The desert does not chain you. The masters do, and their fury is worse than any storm. That night you lie awake, your body aching, your skin still burning from the storm's assault. You listen to the silence, broken only by the coughs of the others, by the distant rumble of the shifting dunes. You close your eyes, but the storm lingers inside you, its howl echoing in your bones. You wonder if you will ever escape it, if you will ever breathe without tasting sand, if you will ever feel clean again. And then, in the quiet, you hear it, a whisper, not from the storm, not from the desert, but from the slaves beside you. A voice, soft but steady. If the storm can break walls, maybe it can break chains too. The words hang in the darkness, sharp as lightning, dangerous as hope. You turn them over in your mind, your heart pounding. Could it be true? Could the fury of the desert one day be the fury of the slaves? Could storms do more than destroy? Could they free? You close your eyes, clutching the thought like a secret flame, and you know that tomorrow the desert will rage again. Tomorrow the storms will return. But just maybe, one day the storm will not come for you. Maybe one day it will come for them. Night on Tatooine is not silence. It is teeth. You hear them before you see them, the crunch of boots on stone, the hiss of blasters warming, the rasp of armor shifting against itself. The suns have set, the crowds have vanished, and the desert lies cloaked in shadows. But the darkness is not freedom. It is a hunting ground, and you are the prey. The first time you see them, they appear like wraiths from the dunes, figures swallowed in cloaks, their visors glowing faintly in the starlight. Bounty hunters, slavers' hounds, wolves that track not by scent but by desperation. They are not needed to keep you chained during the day. The collars do that well enough. The hunters come at night when whispers of escape grow louder, when hope dares to stir. They arrive then to remind you that hope is hunted too. The air is sharp and dry, the stars scattered like shards of glass across the black sky. You crouch low in the yard, pressing yourself against the cool stone, your chest tight as you listen to the footsteps draw closer. Sand shifts under their weight, a slow drag that sounds like a blade scraping across the ground. You don't dare breathe. You've seen what happens when someone is caught in their gaze. Once a man tried to run. He slipped away in the chaos of a storm, vanishing into the dunes while the guards cursed and scrambled. For 2 days he was free, or so he must have thought. And then they brought him back, dragged by the arms, his body limp, his face bruised beyond recognition. His collar sparked as they carried him, a cruel reminder of who had won. They threw him at the feet of his master, and the man didn't move again. You never knew if he was alive or dead. The truth didn't matter. The message did. No one escapes. Not from Tatooine, not from the Hutts, not from us. The hunters walk past you now, their shadows stretching long in the moonlight. You glimpse their armor, scarred, patched, marked with symbols you don't understand. Some wear helmets, Mandalorian designs with T-shaped visors that gleam coldly. Others leave their faces bare, scarred and twisted, eyes sharp as vibroblades. They carry weapons you've only heard of in whispers, nets that hum with energy, whips that crackle with light, rifles that hiss with poison, tools meant not to kill but to capture, because death is not their service, slavery is. You taste bile in your mouth, metallic and sour, as you press yourself flatter against the stone. One of them pauses, his visor turning your way. The glow reflects against your skin, and for a moment you are certain he sees you. You are certain he hears your heart pounding, feels the fear pouring off you like heat. But then he moves on, his boots crunching softly as he disappears into the shadows again. Your body trembles, your stomach twists, your breath finally escapes. You are alive, this time, but not all are. You hear it suddenly, a shout, a cry, cut off too quickly. Chains rattle, footsteps pound, voices bark orders. You turn your head, straining to see through the dark. A girl has been taken, her body wrapped in a net that crackles with electricity. Sparks snapping against her skin. She thrashes, screams, but the net only tightens, the light burning into her flesh. The crowd of slaves watches in silence, their eyes wide, their bodies rigid. No one moves, no one dares, because to help her would mean joining her. And here, survival is selfishness. They drag her away, her cries echoing long after she is gone. You close your eyes, pressing your hands against your ears, but the sound doesn't leave. It burrows into you deeper than the collar ever could. You whisper to yourself in the silence that follows. Don't run, don't whisper, don't hope. But the words feel hollow now, because hope is not something you choose. It is something that haunts you, even in the dark. The hunters are efficient. They move through the yards like shadows, pulling from the ranks those who dared too much, those who looked too far toward the horizon, those whose whispers of escape grew too loud. You don't know how they know. You don't know if the collars betray you or if the desert itself tells them. But they always know, and they always come. Later, when the night grows still again, you huddle with the others, your body cold despite the heat that still lingers in the stone. No one speaks of the girl. No one speaks of the hunters. But you all feel it, the absence where she once was, the fear that she will not be the last. You stare at the stars, your throat tight, your chest aching, and you wonder if freedom is even real. If the galaxy beyond these sands is anything more than a lie told to children to keep them dreaming. And yet you remember the boy in the pits, his hands steady, his eyes burning, his voice alive with belief. He looked at the engines not with fear, but with hunger, with defiance. You cling to that image now, because the hunters cannot take it from you. They can drag away bodies, they can silence whispers, they can bury hope in chains and nets. But they cannot touch the thought that somewhere, somehow, someone might escape. Still, as you lie awake, you hear the crunch of boots in your memory, the hum of nets, the crackle of whips. You know they will come again. They always do. And next time, it might be you, the desert wind. Rises, carrying sand across the yard, whispering like a voice just beyond hearing. You close your eyes, your heart pounding, your body trembling. For a moment, you almost believe the wind itself is warning you, that it knows what waits in the dark, that it knows the hunters are not done. And as you drift into uneasy sleep, you feel it, the collar at your throat, humming faintly, alive, waiting. You realize the truth that chills you more than the hunters ever could. The dark doesn't hide you, it hunts you. Your life is not your own. You've always known this. But tonight, the truth is louder, crueler, sharper than it has ever been. Because tonight, your fate rests not in chains, not in whips, not in collars, but in dice. The cantina is thick with smoke when you're dragged inside, your wrists bound, your throat dry, your stomach empty. The air reeks of spice, of stale ale, of sweat clinging to bodies pressed too close together. Laughter booms over the music, guttural and harsh, while coins clink and cups slam against wood. The crowd is alive with greed, their eyes glittering with the promise of credits won and lost. But to you, the room smells of rot, because here, in the shadows of Mos Espa, lives are traded as casually as drinks. You're shoved forward, stumbling, the chain at your ankles rattling against the floor. The gamblers barely glance at you. To them, you're not a person, you're a wager. A piece to be won or lost, with the roll of bone-white cubes. The Toydarian who owns you flutters above the table, his wings buzzing, his laughter shrill as he waves a hand heavy with credits. His voice is thick with arrogance, his words slurred by drink. "Double or nothing," he crows, his eyes gleaming. "The boy is strong, worth twice what you'd pay in the market. Let the dice decide." Your chest tightens, your throat closing. Let the dice decide. The cubes clatter across the table, bouncing, spinning, their edges catching the dim light. For a heartbeat, the world slows. The smoke hangs heavy in the air. The music dulls to a distant thrum. The voices blur into a single roar. All you can see are the dice. All you can hear is their rattle. All you can feel is your own breath, shallow and quick, as though even your lungs are waiting for the outcome. Because in this moment, you are not human, you are chance. The dice stop. The crowd erupts, laughter and curses colliding, voices sharp and greedy. Hands slap the table, drinks spill, credits shift from one side to the other. You don't hear the numbers called. You don't need to. You know the truth by the way your master's laughter dies, replaced by a hiss of frustration. You know by the way another man steps forward, his grin wide, his eyes hungry, his hand reaching for your chain. You've been lost. A new master, Just like that, the Toydarian snarls, his wings buzzing harder, his words bitter. He argues, curses, demands another throw, but the table laughs at him, mocking his loss, jeering at his pride. He tosses the cup aside, the dice scattering across the floor, and he spits at you as if the failure were yours. You flinch, your stomach twisting, shame burning in your chest though you've done nothing. And then the new master jerks your chain, yanking you forward, and the truth cuts deeper than ever. You are nothing more than the cubes on that table, rolled, spun, tossed, and traded. The new master's grip is rough, his hand calloused, his breath sour with drink. He doesn't speak to you, doesn't look at you, doesn't care. To him, you are not a victory to be celebrated. You are a possession, a tool, a prize to be spent later. His laughter mingles with the crowds, and you realize something that freezes your blood. He didn't win you. He barely noticed he had, because you weren't the point of the game. You were just the stake. The night blurs after that. The cantina grows louder, the music sharper, the laughter crueler. You stand in the shadows, your wrists aching, your stomach churning, your mind spiraling. You wonder if this is how it will always be. Passed from hand to hand, traded in games, wagered on whims, never asked, never heard, never free. The thought gnaws at you worse than hunger ever did, because hunger you can endure, chains you can carry, but to be nothing more than a throw of dice? That breaks you in places no whip could reach. The cantina grows hotter, the air thick with sweat and smoke. You taste ash on your tongue, bitterness that won't fade. You close your eyes and for a moment you imagine throwing the dice yourself. Imagine rolling them across the table, not for your freedom, but for theirs. Imagine watching the crowd realize that fate is crueler than greed, that chance can betray even the powerful. But the fantasy dies as quickly as it comes. Because you don't control the dice. You never will. Later, when the games end and the cantina empties, you are dragged into the street, the night air sharp against your skin. The stars glitter cold above, indifferent to your suffering, watching silently as your chain changes hands. The city around you hums with life, merchants closing stalls, drunks stumbling home, slaves cleaning the streets. All of them move as though nothing has changed. Because for them, nothing has. A slave was traded. A life was gambled. A soul was lost. On Tatooine, this is not news. It is normal. You stumble after your new master, your feet dragging, your body heavy. The chain cuts into your wrist, the collar hums against your neck, and your chest aches with every breath. You wonder if this is the end of you. Not death, but something worse. A slow erasure, piece by piece, until nothing of you remains. You whisper to yourself, desperate, broken, I am not dice. I am not dice. But the words sound hollow, even to your own ears. You pass the Podracing Pits, silent now under the stars. You remember the boy with the burning eyes, his hands steady on the engines, his gaze alive with something dangerous. Hope, defiance, belief. You cling to that memory as the chain jerks you forward, because it is the only thing that feels real. If he can dream in this place, maybe you can too. If he can believe, maybe you are not just dice. But as you turn a corner, your master's laughter echoing in the dark, you hear a voice from the shadows, low, sharp, certain. Next time, make sure the dice fall for you. You freeze, your heart pounding, your breath catching, because for the first time, the words don't sound like mockery, they sound like a promise. You meet him not in chains but in grease. The pits reek of oil and smoke when you first notice him, a boy crouched beneath the belly of a pod racer, his small hands vanishing into the machinery like he was born to it. The engines roar, alive with fire and danger, yet he does not flinch. Sparks crackle, sand hisses against hot metal, the air shakes with the hum of restrained power, but he only smiles. A smile that does not belong on Tatooine, a smile that should not exist in chains. You stand a few feet away, your own wrists sore from hauling parts, your eyes stinging with dust, your chest heavy with exhaustion. Yet you can't look away, because in that boy's eyes, brighter than the twin suns, you see something you have not seen in years, not in yourself, not in anyone. You see belief. He talks as he works, his voice eager, alive, spilling words faster than his hands can move. About pod racers, about speed, about skies he's never touched but somehow knows as if they're already his. He speaks of stars, of worlds beyond the desert, of freedom. Dangerous words, words you've learned to bury, but he speaks them without fear, without hesitation, as if he doesn't know they're forbidden, as if he doesn't care. The others glance at him, some with pity, some with scorn. A dreamer, they whisper, a fool. But you listen, because his words stir something inside you, something sharp and fragile, something you thought was long dead. Hope. You watch him crawl out from beneath the machine, his face smeared with oil, his hands black with grease. He wipes them on his tunic, leaving streaks of filth, and grins like he's just touched the heart of the galaxy. He is younger than you, smaller, but he carries himself as though the chain at his neck doesn't exist, as though the collar is not a prison, but an inconvenience. You envy him, and you fear for him because you know what this world does too. Dreamers, it breaks them, it buries them, it teaches them that dreams are weapons turned against their own hearts. He notices you watching. His grin widens. Ever wonder what it feels like? He asks, his voice sharp with excitement. Flying. Fast enough to leave it all behind? You open your mouth, but no words come. Because yes, you've wondered. You've imagined it in stolen moments, in fragile dreams, in whispers you never dared share. But to hear it spoken aloud, here, in the pits, where the collar hums and the guards watch, it feels like blasphemy. Your throat tightens, your chest aches, your eyes burn. You want to tell him no, to silence him, to protect him from himself. But instead, you whisper, yes. And for the first time, you say the word like it means something. The boy laughs, and the sound is too wild, too free, too dangerous for this place. It echoes against the walls, bouncing between the engines, and for a heartbeat, the pits feel different. Not a cage, not a tomb, but a cradle, holding the first fragile sound of defiance. You learn his name later, Anakin. The slaves whisper it like a secret, the masters bark it like an order, but he carries it like a promise. He speaks of stars, of pod racers, of droids he's built from scraps, of ships he'll one day fly. His words paint pictures in your mind, colors brighter than the desert, skies wider than the horizon. And every time he speaks, you feel something loosen in your chest, something long bound by chains. But with every word, you also feel the shadow of fear. Because you've seen what happens to those who dream. You've seen them broken in the markets, beaten in the yards, dragged away by hunters in the night. Tatooine does not forgive dreamers. It devours them. And you wonder how long before it devours him too. Still, he dreams. He talks of freedom not as an impossibility, but as a certainty. He speaks of leaving Tatooine, of seeing the galaxy, of touching the stars. His voice is so sure that you almost believe him. Almost. But then the chain rattles at your wrist, the collar hums at your throat, the guards bark their orders, and reality crashes back like a wave. Freedom is not for you, not here, not ever. And yet, when you look at him, when you hear him, when you see the fire in his eyes, you can't help but wonder. What if? The pod racers roar again, their engines screaming, their turbines shaking the ground. The crowd above thunders, their voices a storm of greed and hunger. The race is about to begin. You stand in the shadows, your chain heavy, your stomach hollow, your chest tight. But the boy, Anakin, doesn't look afraid. He looks alive. You watch as he climbs into the cockpit, his small hands gripping the controls, his eyes alight with a fire you've never seen. The guards laugh, the masters sneer, the crowd jeers at the foolishness of a child daring to race. But Anakin doesn't hear them. Or maybe he does, and he simply doesn't care. The engines ignite, the ground trembles, the air shakes. You cover your ears, flinching at the sound, but Anakin only smiles. And then the racers surge forward, fire and thunder exploding across the sand, and he is gone. Your heart races as you watch him, the boy who dreamed, his pod weaving between rocks and cliffs, skimming the ground at impossible speed. You can barely see him, barely breathe, barely believe. The crowd screams, but you don't hear them. You hear only the roar of the engines, the hum of power, the sound of defiance made flesh. For a moment, just a moment, you believe he might do it. You believe he might win. You believe he might escape. And in that belief, something dangerous takes root inside you. Because if he can, maybe you can too. The race rages on, the dust rising, the engine screaming, the crowd roaring. Your hands shake, your throat burns, your eyes blur with tears you don't remember forming. You whisper his name under your breath, as if saying it could carry him faster, could shield him from the desert, could turn dreams into truth. And then, silence. The crowd gasps. The engines sputter. Smoke rises from the track. For a heartbeat, your chest collapses. Your knees weaken. Your stomach drops. You can't see him. You can't hear him. You can't breathe. And in that silence, you remember the truth. Dreams die on Tatooine. The air itself feels alive. It hums, vibrates, shudders, as if the desert has become a drum beaten by giants. You stand in the shadows of the arena, your chains heavy, your throat dry, your heart pounding, and then you hear it, the roar of pod racers awakening, not engines, not machines, but beasts of fire and fury. Their turbines scream, their repulsors growl, their cables snap taut with restrained violence. The sound slams into your chest, rattles your bones, steals the breath from your lungs. The fire of the pod race has begun. The crowd above is a storm. Voices crash like thunder, cheers and jeers rising into the burning sky, their hunger louder than the engines themselves. The air reeks of sweat, of dust, of oil spilling across the sand. Spice smoke drifts from the stands, thick and bitter, clinging to your tongue until every breath tastes like ash. You press yourself against the stone, watching as the racers line up, their pods trembling, engines glowing with searing light. And there he is, the boy who dreamed. Anakin sits in his cockpit, too small for the harness, too young for the machine that surrounds him. But his hands are steady on the controls, his eyes bright with something you can't name. It isn't arrogance. It isn't fear. It is something rarer. Belief. You can see it even from here, burning in him like a second sun. The guards laugh, the crowd mocks, the other racers sneer. But Anakin doesn't hear them. He is already somewhere else, already flying. The announcer's voice booms over the roar, guttural Huttese words echoing across the canyon walls. The crowd responds, surging with noise, with greed, with bloodlust. Bets are shouted, credits change hands, and lives are gambled as easily as dice. You know this well, too well. You clench your fists, your nails digging into your palms, because this isn't a race. This is slaughter dressed as entertainment. The flaws. G drops. Engines ignite, and the world explodes. Pods scream forward, fire tearing across the sand, turbines shrieking like predators unleashed. The ground quakes beneath their speed, the air rips apart with their passage. Dust and stone whip against your face, hot wind slamming into your body. You stagger, shielding your eyes, but you cannot look away. Because Anakin is there, his pod surging ahead, weaving between giants faster than any child should be, faster than even the desert seems to believe. The first corner comes, and with it, the first crash. A pod slams into the canyon wall, its engines bursting in a wave of flame. Shrapnel rains across the track, bodies tumbling, smoke billowing. The crowd roars louder, their cheers drowning the screams. You taste bile, your stomach twisting because you know what they're cheering for. Not the victory, the death, always the death. But Anakin doesn't falter. His pod dances through the wreckage, skimming the flames, his hands steady, his eyes fixed. You watch him move like the engines are part of him, like the machine is not a cage but a set of wings. He flies. He truly flies. And for a heartbeat, you forget the chains. You forget the collar. You forget the desert. You feel yourself lift with him, rising into a sky you've never touched. Then the second lap begins, and the fire grows. Engines scream hotter. Turbines glow brighter. The air itself shimmering with heat. The smell of burning oil thickens, stinging your nose, coating your tongue. You cough, choking. But the crowd's roar swallows even that. Another crash, another cheer, another life snuffed out like a candle in the storm. You grip the chain at your wrist, the metal biting your skin, grounding you in the truth. This is not freedom. This is survival on fire. And yet, Anakin surges on. His pod skims the rocks, darts between racers, dives through caverns where shadows swallow light. Sparks spray as his engines scrape stone, dust clouds rising behind him, but still he holds. Still he flies. You feel your own breath catch, your chest tight, your body trembling. You whisper his name under your breath, though you don't know why. As if saying it could shield him, as if saying it could make him faster. The final lap begins, and the fire becomes fury. Engines roar louder than thunder, brighter than lightning, hotter than suns. The racers push harder, faster, desperate. The track itself becomes a battlefield. Collisions, explosions, smoke rising in pillars across the desert. You can't see clearly through the dust, your eyes burning, your lungs aching, but you know he's still there. You feel it. The boy who dreamed, still flying, still defying, still alive. And then, silence. The crowd gasps, the announcer shouts, and your chest freezes. You see smoke trailing from Anakin's pod, one engine sputtering, coughing sparks. The machine wobbles, veers, spins dangerously close to the canyon wall. Your heart slams against your ribs, your throat closes, your stomach drops. He's going to crash. He's going to burn. He's going to die like all the others. The crowd leans forward, their voices hungry, their eyes alight with greed. They want it. They crave it. The child's death, the fire, the wreckage, the desert demands it. And for a heartbeat, you believe it too. Because Tatooine does not let dreamers live. Tatooine devours them. But then, you see him move. Anakin's hands blur over the controls, his body twisting, his eyes blazing. The sputtering engine sputters again and reignites. Fire roars back to life, brighter, fiercer, the pod surging forward once more. The crowd erupts, their cheers deafening, their hunger momentarily sated by survival instead of death. And you, chained in the shadows, feel your heart ignite with him. Because he should have died. He should have burned, but he didn't. He won't. The finish line rises ahead. The crowds roar, shaking the stones, the desert trembling with fury. The racers surge forward, pods screaming, fire devouring the track, and Anakin, small, fragile, impossible Anakin, soars past them all. His engines flare brighter, his pod shudders with speed, and he crosses the line in a blaze of fire and light. The crowd explodes, their cheers shaking the very sky. Masters shout, credits fly, guards laugh, voices thunder with disbelief. A slave has won, a child has conquered the fire. You stagger back, your chest heaving, your eyes burning with tears you don't understand. Because you've seen death in the pits, you've seen blood in the arena, you've seen chains on every wrist. But never this, never a dream realized, never fire turned into freedom. You whisper his name again, this time not in fear, but in awe. Anakin, the boy who dreamed, the boy who flew, the boy who won. And yet, as the crowd cheers and the desert trembles, a thought cuts through the fire in your chest, a thought sharp and cold, darker than any chain. Dreams may burn brighter than fire, but fire too can consume. Freedom is not a door you walk through. It is a mirage in the desert, so close you can taste it, so vivid you can almost believe, and then gone in an instant, leaving only sand in your mouth and chains at your throat. Tonight, you learn that lesson again. The pod race still burns in your ears, the roar of engines echoing like thunder through your skull. You can still smell the smoke of ruptured turbines, still taste the dust thrown up by speeding pods. You can still see him, Anakin, his small figure standing tall in the cockpit, victorious, impossible, a slave child who won what no free racer could. For a heartbeat, the galaxy tilted. For a heartbeat, you believed that maybe the desert couldn't devour every dream. And then the laughter of the Hutts brought you back. The palace is thick with smoke and shadows when you are dragged inside, chains heavy on your wrists, the collar humming against your skin. The air reeks of spice and rot, of bodies pressed too close, of food and drink spilled across marble floors. Jabba lounges in his throne, his massive form quivering with laughter, his voice booming in Hutts as he bellows for more drink, more dancers, more noise. The pod race is already a story, already a game, already a joke to him. To you, it was everything. To him, it was nothing. You are shoved to the side, your knees striking stone, and you watch as wagers are settled. Credits pile high, fortunes shift, and all of it because of a boy's impossible victory. The Toydarian flutters forward, his wings buzzing with fury, his words sharp as knives. He argues, protests, demands his winnings. But the Jedi stand across from him, strangers cloaked in robes, their faces calm, their eyes unreadable. They speak softly, but their words carry weight heavier than any chain. They speak of freedom. Your chest tightens, your heart pounding. You lean forward, your ears straining, your entire body alive with hunger. Not for food, not for water, but for that word, freedom. The word you've whispered in the dark, the word you've feared to even think. You hear it spoken aloud now, clear, certain, undeniable, and you let yourself believe, for just a moment. The Toydarian snarls, shaking his head, his wings buzzing faster. He argues, shouting about property, about ownership, about debts owed. The Jedi do not flinch. They smile instead, and they hold up the dice. White cubes, small and simple, yet heavier than any chain you've ever worn. The Toydarian sneers, and the bargain is struck. The dice tumble, spinning, rattling, their edges catching the light, and fate chooses. The boy is free. Anakin, the boy who dreamed, the boy who won, the boy who now walks away with nothing at his throat, no chain on his wrist, no collar pressing into his skin. You watch him from the shadows, your breath caught, your chest aching, your eyes burning with tears you cannot stop. He is free, he is leaving, and you are not. The weight of it crushes you. The chains feel heavier than ever, the collar tighter, the stone floor colder beneath your knees. You cannot breathe. You want to cheer, to celebrate for him, but the sound dies in your throat, strangled by envy, by despair, by a bitterness so sharp it tastes like blood. Why him? Why not you? Why not all of you? If the Force, if fate, if chance itself could free one child, why not every child? Why not every slave? The questions claw at you, furious, endless, and you know there are no answers. You see his mother watching too, her face soft, her eyes wet with pride and sorrow, because she is not free. The bargain was for him, not for her. Her chains remain, her collar hums, her fate unchanged. And yet she smiles for him. She smiles as though freedom for her child is enough. You wonder if you could do the same. You wonder if you would. The Jedi lead him away, their robes trailing across the floor, their voices calm as they promise him a future among the stars. You press yourself against the wall, desperate to etch the image into your mind, desperate to remember what it looks like when someone wins against the desert. You whisper his name under your breath, a prayer, a curse, a plea, Anakin, Anakin, Anakin. But the palace returns to noise, to laughter, to chains clinking against stone. Slaves are dragged forward with trays of food, dancers sway before Jabba's throne, guards shout and shove. Life continues as it always does. Nothing has changed, not for you, not for most. Freedom is a story you've been forced to watch but never touch. That night, lying on cold stone, you feel the absence where he should be. His laughter no longer echoes in the pits. His fire no longer fills the air. The silence is unbearable, heavier than chains. You close your eyes, and you see him leaving, stepping into a future that was denied to you. You taste the bitterness of it, the cruelty, the injustice, and you realize something sharper than any whip. Freedom hurts more when you see it given to someone else. You try to dream, but the dreams twist, cruel and jagged. You see yourself on the starting line, engines roaring, chains gone, the finish line ahead. You see yourself crossing, flying, soaring, and then the collar hums, the chain jerks, the dream burns away, and you wake with blood in your mouth where you've bitten your tongue. You stare into the dark, your breath ragged, your body trembling, and you whisper the truth. Not everyone gets free, not everyone leaves, not everyone wins. And as the desert wind moans outside, carrying sand against the stone walls, you hear another sound too faint to be the storm. The crunch of boots, the clatter of armor, the hunters prowling again. Your heart stops, because tonight, one child left in freedom, but tomorrow, someone else will vanish in chains. Morning on Tatooine is never a beginning. It is repetition. The twin suns rise, and the desert does not welcome you. It devours you. The heat presses down before the day has even begun, the sand already burning beneath your bare feet, the air already heavy in your lungs. The chain at your wrist rattles as you rise, not because it is new, but because it is old. Too old. So old it feels as though it has been with you since birth, as though it will remain until death. You don't count the days anymore. Days are meaningless here. Only cycles remain. Work, hunger, fear, sleep, repeat. You walk the yards, your back bent, your hands raw, your eyes hollow. You drag crates, scrub floors, repair scraps. The guards shout the same orders, their voices as constant as the desert wind. The whips crack the same way, slicing the air, slicing flesh, slicing what little hope remains. The collars hum, faint but constant, a reminder that even silence is a chain. Nothing changes, nothing ever changes. And yet everything feels different, because Anakin is gone, the boy who dreamed, the boy who flew, the boy who won his freedom. You see the emptiness where he should be. His laughter no longer fills the pits, his voice no longer stirs the silence, his eyes no longer burn against the darkness. He is gone, and with him, the fragile spark of hope he carried. The desert feels heavier without him, the chains colder, the cycle sharper. You wonder if his freedom was real at all, or if it was just another trick. Another story told to keep you moving. Maybe the galaxy beyond Tatooine is as much a lie as freedom itself. The cycle continues. At the market, you watch slaves sold, their faces numb, their bodies trembling. You've seen it all before. The bargaining, the shouting, the laughter of buyers, the silence of the sold. A child cries as he's pulled from his mother, and the sound claws at your chest. Why? I'll remember hearing it before, years ago, in another market, from another child. Different faces, same pain. Different day, same chain. The cycle does not care who suffers, only that it continues. At the arena, the crowd roars, voices colliding like thunder as blood stains the sand. Beasts tear men apart, gladiators clash, screams echo. You've heard it all before, too many times to count. You drag the bodies when the fights end, the smell of iron clinging to your skin, the weight of silence heavier than the corpses themselves. Different fighters, same deaths, different blood, same sand. The cycle drinks it all and demands more. At night you collapse onto stone, your body trembling, your skin raw, your stomach empty. You close your eyes and you dream of escape. You dream of running across the dunes, of breaking the collar, of leaving the desert behind. But you've dreamed it before, you've woken to chains before, and you know you will again. Dreams are part of the cycle too. Hope rises, hope breaks, hope dies. Sometimes you hear whispers of rebellion, whispers of storms that break walls, of hunters who fail, of masters who fall. You've heard them before, year after year, voice after voice. None have come true. The whispers fade, the chains remain, the desert wins, always. You want to believe this time will be different, but you know better. Belief itself is part of the cycle. The desert teaches you a cruel truth. Nothing changes on Tatooine. Not the suns, not the sand, not the chains. Slaves are born, slaves die, and in between they serve. That is the cycle. That is the truth. That is the cage. And yet, something lingers. A memory. A boy's eyes, burning brighter than the sun's. Anakin. You remember his grin, his voice, his fire. You remember the sound of engines roaring as he defied the desert. You remember the silence when he almost fell, the roar when he rose again. He broke the cycle, if only for a moment. He escaped. He left. He proved that maybe, just maybe, the cycle is not unbreakable. But the desert whispers back, cruel and certain. One boy does not break the desert. One dream does not end the chains. One victory does not stop the endless cycle. For every Anakin, there are thousands left behind. Thousands still shackled. Thousands still dreaming, still breaking, still dying. You lie awake in the dark, your heart heavy, your body aching, your spirit hollow. The collar hums softly. The chain digs into your skin. The stone presses against your back. You stare at the ceiling, tracing the cracks with your eyes, and you wonder if they've always been there, or if you've just forgotten how to count them. Cycles blur like that. You stop knowing where one ends and another begins. And then, in the silence, you hear it. A voice, soft, trembling, fragile. A child whispering to another, "One day I'll fly too." The words cut through you sharper than any lash. They are not new. You have heard them before. You've whispered them yourself. They are part of the cycle too. A new dream, a new hope, a new child daring to believe. You want to silence him, to protect him from the cruelty of his own words. But you can't, because you remember Anakin. You remember that for one boy, for one impossible moment, the dream was real. You close your eyes, your throat tight, your chest aching. The cycle is endless, but so are the whispers. And somewhere in the dark, you know the desert is listening. The desert does not remember you. It swallows footprints, erases trails, and buries bones beneath endless dunes. It does not care how you lived, how you suffered, or how you died. On Tatooine, time itself is sand, always shifting, always consuming, always forgetting. And tonight, you wonder if one day the desert will forget you too. The suns have long since set, but the heat lingers in the stone beneath your body. You lie on the floor of the quarters, the chain at your wrist digging into raw skin, your throat dry, your stomach hollow. Around you, other slaves breathe in shallow, broken rhythms. Some twitch in restless sleep, others groan softly, trapped in dreams no better than waking. You stare at the ceiling, the cracks spreading like veins, and you feel yourself fading into them. It is not one wound that breaks you here, not one lash, not one hunger, not one storm. It is the weight of repetition, the endless cycle, work, pain, silence, sleep, again, again, again. Each day the same as the last until the past blurs and the future disappears, until you are nothing but dust on the wind. You rise before dawn, as always. The desert greets you with fire, as always. The guards shout, the whips crack, the collars hum, as always. You lift, you drag, you scrub, you bleed, always. You no longer remember the first time your hands bled. You no longer remember the last time they didn't. At the market, you watch another child sold. His eyes are wide, wet with tears, his cries sharp in the air. His mother clutches at him until the guards pry her hands away, until the chain pulls him from her grasp, until his voice disappears into the roar of the crowd. You want to scream, but you don't, because you've seen it before, because you'll see it again. Different faces, same pain, forgotten in the sand. At the pits, you scrub grease from the turbines of engines you will never fly. Sparks boo. In your skin, fumes choke your lungs, heat blisters your arms. You hear laughter above, jeers from the crowd, voices hungry for crashes. You think of Anakin, the boy who dreamed, the boy who flew, the boy who left. For a heartbeat, you wonder if he remembers you, if he remembers this place, if he remembers the slaves still here. But the desert whispers the truth in your ear. He is gone, you are not, and you will be forgotten. The arena screams again, louder than the storms, sharper than the whips. Beasts tear through flesh, gladiators clash, blood soaks the sand. You drag the bodies when it ends, your hands slick with blood, your nose filled with the stench of death. You try to remember their faces, but already they blur. Already the desert begins to take them, forgotten in the sand. At night you whisper to yourself, desperate to hold on. You whisper names, faces, moments. You whisper them like prayers, like anchors, like fragile threads against the tide of forgetting. But even your own voice feels faint now. Even your own name tastes like dust on your tongue. You wonder how long before you forget it, how long before the desert erases you too. Sometimes you see bones in the dunes, white, brittle, half-buried. Once they belonged to someone, a worker, a fighter, a dreamer. Now they are nothing. No one speaks their name, no one remembers their voice. The desert keeps them, as it will keep you, forgotten in the sand. The cruelty of it is sharp. You are forced to survive each day, yet survival itself means nothing. You are forced to carry pain, yet the pain leaves no mark the desert will remember. You are forced to dream, yet dreams vanish when the suns rise again. You live, but you do not exist. You suffer, but you are not seen. You endure, but you are forgotten. And yet, something lingers, a whisper in the silence, the memory of eyes burning brighter than suns. Anakin. You hold on to it like a secret, like a weapon, like a lifeline, because he escaped. He broke the chain. He left the desert behind. If the desert cannot forget him, maybe it cannot forget you either. Maybe. But the desert does not forgive dreamers. The next morning, a sandstorm sweeps the yard, devouring the horizon, howling through the walls. You clutch your chain, your body pressed low, the wind lashing your skin. The guards shout, their voices lost in the roar, their whips useless in the chaos. For a moment, no one commands. For a moment, no one obeys. For a moment, there is only the storm. And in that moment, you feel it, the possibility, the opening, the chance. You look to the horizon, the dunes shifting, the desert alive. You see nothing but sand, but you feel something more. You feel choice. Your heart pounds, your throat burns, your legs tremble. You take one step toward the horizon, one step against the cycle, one step into the storm, and then the collar hums. The pain sears through your body, lightning in your veins, fire in your bones. You collapse into the sand, your scream swallowed by the storm. Your vision blurs, your chest convulses, your body burns. The desert swallows you whole, and when the storm passes, you are still there, still chained, still alive, but weaker, smaller, forgotten. The guards laugh as they drag you back, their voices sharp, their hands cruel. To them, it was nothing. A foolish attempt, a lesson. To you, it was everything, and it ended the way it always does, in chains, in silence, in sand. That night you lie on the stone, your body trembling, your eyes staring blankly into the dark. You hear whispers of others, whispers of escape, whispers of storms. You've heard them before. You'll hear them again. Different voices, same dreams, same end. The desert always wins. But still, as your eyes close, you see the boy who dreamed, the boy who flew, the boy who left. And you wonder, maybe the desert forgets most, but not all, maybe not you. And then the wind rises again, carrying sand against the walls, whispering like a voice just beyond hearing. You shiver, your breath catching, your heart pounding, because the whisper is not the desert's this time, it is your own. I will not be forgotten. The chain rattles, but your mind is somewhere else. The desert is loud today. The suns blaze hotter than usual, their heat pressing into your skin until every breath feels like fire. Sand grinds between your teeth, coats your tongue, stings your eyes until tears blur the horizon. The guards shout, their voices sharp as blades, their whips cracking through the air like thunder. But you hardly hear them, because inside, in that secret place the collar cannot reach, you are flying. You see it when you close your eyes, engines roaring, turbines screaming, the ground vanishing beneath you as speed lifts you higher and higher, closer to the stars. You feel the controls in your hands, light as air, alive as heartbeat. You feel the wind in your face, the pull in your chest, the freedom in your blood. For a moment, the sand is not your prison. For a moment, it is the sky. But then the collar hums, and the dream cracks. Your knees buckle as the spark sears through your body, fire lancing down your spine, lightning burning in your bones. You hit the ground, dust rising around you, your scream swallowed by the desert wind. The guards laugh, their shadows falling over you, their voices cruel. To them, the dream is weakness. To them, the collar is truth. And yet, even as your body trembles, even as your skin blisters, you clutch the dream tighter. Because pain fades, hunger fades, chains rust. But dreams can survive. You've seen proof. You saw it in a boy's eyes once, a boy younger than you, smaller than you, yet stronger than the desert itself. Anakin. You remember his laughter, sharp and wild, echoing against the walls of the pits. You remember the fire of the pod race, the roar of victory, the impossible moment when a slave became free. You remember watching him walk away, chains broken, collar gone, destiny waiting. You remember how it felt to believe, even for a heartbeat, in that the desert could be defeated. You tell yourself that if he could dream, then so can you. But the desert is cruel. It reminds you every day. At the market you see slaves sold, their voices breaking as they are dragged away. At the arena you hear screams rise and fall, bodies broken for the crowd's pleasure. At night you lie on cold stone, your body aching, your throat dry, your stomach hollow. You whisper to yourself in the dark, clinging to names, to memories, to fragments of hope. But the whispers fade, always fade. And you wonder, will your dream fade too? Still, it lingers. You dream of stars. You dream of ships soaring through skies you've never touched, worlds beyond the desert, voices that do not command but call. You dream of a life where your name is not property, where your breath is not borrowed, where your soul is not weighed in credits. You dream of running without chains, of speaking without fear, of living without masters. You dream because dreaming is all you have left. And sometimes, when you least expect it, you feel the desert listen. When the storms howl across the dunes, tearing down walls, shaking the earth, you hear them not as rage, but as song. A song of change, a song of defiance. You press your hands to the sand, your skin raw, your body trembling, and you swear you feel it pulse back. A heartbeat older than the sun's, deeper than the chains, whispering that nothing lasts forever. not even slavery. But the desert also whispers warnings. Bones half buried in the dunes, whispers silenced by hunters in the dark. Children sold, mothers weeping, fathers beaten into dust. You know the truth. You've lived it. Dreams die here, always. The desert does not forgive dreamers. And yet, you are still dreaming. One night you lie awake, the quarters silent except for shallow breaths and muffled coughs. The stars glitter faintly through a crack in the ceiling, scattered like fragments of broken glass. You stare at them, your eyes wide, your chest aching, your throat tight. You imagine reaching up, your fingers brushing against the cold light, pulling yourself free from the sand below. You whisper the words into the silence, words you've never dared speak before. I will not die here. The words frighten you. They feel too sharp, too dangerous, too alive. You glance at the others, half expecting guards to storm in, collars to spark, whips to strike. But the silence remains. No one heard, no one but you. And in that silence, the words become something more. Not just a whisper, a promise. The next morning, the suns rise, the desert burns, the guards shout, the whips crack. The cycle continues. You drag, you lift, you bleed, as always. But something is different now. You feel it in your chest, deep and steady, a fire that refuses to die. You carry it with you through the market, through the pits, through the arena. You carry it even when the guards strike, even when the collar burns, even when the desert itself howls. You carry it because it is all you have. You carry it because without it, you are already dead. You are still a slave. Your wrists are still chained. Your throat is still bound. Your name is still forgotten. But your dream is alive. And one day you tell yourself, one day it will be enough. You close your eyes, the sun's blazing above, the sand burning beneath, the collar humming faintly against your skin. You take a breath, shallow but steady, and you whisper again, I will not die here. The desert does not answer. The guards do not notice. The cycle does not break, not yet. But somewhere deep inside, where chains cannot reach, you feel it. The spark, the fire, the dream. And you know that even if you are forgotten in the sand, you will not stop, because you are the slave who still dreams. The desert does not change. The suns rise, the sands shift, the winds howl, and the cycle begins again. You wake on cold stone, your throat dry, your stomach hollow, your skin raw from chains that never leave. You hear the guards shouting, the whips cracking, the collars humming faintly like predators waiting to strike. You drag yourself up, your body aching, your spirit heavier still. Another day, another cycle. Another chance for the desert to remind you that you are not free. But what truly breaks you is not the work. It is not the hunger, not the pain, not even the collar sparking at your throat. What breaks you is how normal it all feels. You walk to the yards, your wrists bound, your eyes half shut against the suns. The heat claws at you, searing your skin, peeling the air from your lungs. Around you, others move the same way, slaves of every kind, their bodies bent, their eyes hollow, their steps slow. No one speaks, no one resists. You haul crates, scrub stone, grease engines, drag broken metal through the sand. And you realize, you've done this before. You'll do it again tomorrow. You'll do it again until you can't. The desert is not cruel because it kills. It is cruel because it does not. At the market, you watch another family torn apart. A child sold to one master, a mother to another, a father left behind. Their voices shatter the air, screams raw enough to scrape your skin. The crowd does not pause. Buyers keep shouting prices, sellers keep bargaining, guards keep dragging bodies away. The child disappears into the throng, the mother collapses, the father goes silent. You stand there, chains heavy, your chest hollow, and you know you've seen this before. You'll see it again tomorrow. Different faces, same pain, forgotten in the sand. At the pits, the pod racers roar, fire and thunder shaking the ground. You scrub engines with bleeding hands, sparks burning, your arms, smoke choking your lungs. Above, the crowd cheers, hungry for speed, hungry for fire, hungry for death. You remember the boy, Anakin, the one who dreamed, the one who flew, the one who escaped. His victory still lingers in you, bright as lightning, sharp as hope, but he is gone, and you are not. The pits still roar, the crowd still jeers, the chains still hold. Freedom for one does not free the many. At the arena, screams echo across the sand. Beasts tear flesh, gladiators clash, blood stains the ground darker than shadow. You drag bodies when it ends, your hands slick, your nose filled with iron, your mind filled with silence. You try to remember their faces, but the desert already forgets. And you know, one day, your face will be forgotten too. At night, you lie on stone, your chest rising shallow, your eyes staring into the cracks above. You whisper to yourself, words faint, fragile, desperate. You whisper that you are still alive, that you still dream, that you will not die here. But the words feel small in the dark. The desert is louder. The desert is eternal. The desert does not care. That is why it sucked to be a slave on Tatooine, because you were not just beaten, you were erased, because every day was the same until you forgot who you were. Because the desert swallowed your name, your voice, your dreams, and left only dust. Because freedom was not just denied, it was mocked, shown to you once, dangled like a mirage, then snatched away. Because hope itself was hunted, punished, broken. Because even when you saw it, when you saw a child rise above the desert, when you saw him fly, when you saw him leave, you were left behind. That is why it sucked to be a slave on Tatooine. The pain was sharp, yes. The hunger endless. Yes, the storms, the hunters, the markets, the arenas, all of them claws tearing at your body and your spirit. But worse than any of it was the cycle, the knowledge that tomorrow would be the same, that nothing would change, that the desert would outlast you. And yet, somehow, you still dream. You dream of skies wider than the horizon, of stars brighter than the suns, of chains breaking, of collars shattering, of running across the dunes with nothing to stop you. You dream of a world where your name means something, where your life belongs to you, where your soul is not weighed in credits or dice. You dream because the desert cannot take that from you. Not yet, not ever. The chain rattles as you shift on the stone, your eyes half closed, your breath shallow. The guards laugh outside, their voices cruel, their boots striking the sand. The desert wind moans, carrying grit against the walls, whispering softly, endlessly, eternally. You close your eyes, clutching the dream tighter, whispering the words you've spoken in the dark before. I will not die here. The collar hums, faint and sharp, a warning against defiance. You tremble, your chest tight, your throat raw, but you say it again, louder this time. I will not die here. And for a heartbeat, the desert listens. The wind rises, rattling the walls, swirling the sand, howling like a voice older than suns. The sound fills the quarters, shakes the chains, drowns the guards' laughter. It echoes inside you, deeper than the collar, stronger than the pain, brighter than the suns. You feel it burn in your chest, sharp and wild, alive as fire. And you realize something the desert cannot erase, something the masters cannot silence, something the cycle cannot bury. You are still dreaming, and dreams, like storms, always return.